What is up, guys? Happy, what is it, Wednesday? Happy Wednesday. When you work from home, days of the week don't exist anymore. It's just day one, day four, day 10,000. Happy Wednesday. It's been a while since I've done a live Q&A. I think it was back in May, the last time that I've done one. So I've been overdue and felt like today was a good time to do it. I've got a busy ass week coming, starting tomorrow with the release of Alien Romulus. So this is the last time I might be able to do one for this month. But yeah, I also, after scheduling the stream and making a thumbnail and everything, I said, oh shit, yeah, I did pass 150,000 subscribers too. So maybe I should throw that in there as a reason to do this. So yeah, 150K. Woo! Thank you guys so much for everybody that has subscribed. And, you know, whether you're an old school fan, a new school fan, this might be your first video finding me, make it 151. Join in. But yeah, I just wanted to spend a little while hanging out with you guys, taking some questions and bullshitting about some stuff. So I'm gonna try my best to kind of make this about a 2-hour stream. It all depends on how active everybody is in the chat. You know, those you guys that this is not your first rodeo, know that sometimes the super chats can go a little wild, and so I'll get stuck doing this until sometime Friday night. But we'll see what happens. So first off, I will try my best to get to as many questions as possible, as always, but super chats will take priority as they come in. But I'm going to try my best. So, hello, everybody. We got Epic Zombie Killer. Start off here. Hey, Cody, you hear about the possible rumor that Capcom has 2 Resident Evil remakes in development, Code Veronica and Resident Evil Zero. I saw that somewhere, but I've kind of stopped putting stock into any rumors because it feels like every other week there's some leaked fan trailer or some leaked poster that ends up being bullshit. So, for me, it's only going to make sense if they do Resident Evil 1 again, they do Code Veronica, and they do Resident Evil 5, because we've done kind of the Leon Raccoon City trilogy, right? We started with Resident Evil 2, we followed that up with Resident Evil 3 to close out the Raccoon City storyline, and then we did Resident Evil 4, which is the follow-up with Leon. So there's been, you know, a lot of talk that they're just going to go right into Resident Evil 5, and for me, it makes no sense, because anybody that has just started playing Resident Evil games in this new generation, these modern remakes, they don't know who the hell Chris Redfield is, Jill Valentine, Wesker. So you're giving them the third act of this story before they know anything what's going on. You know, Resident Evil Zero, if that's true, as long as Resident Evil 1 is coming afterwards, I'm fine with that. I'm not a massive fan of Zero, but they could do something cool with that one. Code Veronica seems like a no-brainer. Of all of the games, that's the one that most desperately needs a remake. But yeah, if I was making the decisions, it would be Resident Evil 1, Code Veronica, and then Resident Evil 5. Do the same kind of trilogy treatment that they did to 2, 3, and 4. Oh, let's see here. Hey, Cody, any chance we get a hidden gem review of The Way, Way Back? I actually have plans to do that at some time this month. Yes, I think I missed last month's hidden gem review, and I watched that movie a couple weeks ago, and it's stuck in my head as something I want to talk about. So very likely that will happen very soon. All right, let's see here. Thank you so much. Awesome. Cool guy. Best and worst theater experiences this year. You know, best, I think it's easy to say Deadpool and Wolverine. That's just kind of one of those big movie events. And so it's one that the movie experience is kind of elevated a bit, because it's not just you and people hopefully watching a good movie. It's everybody like getting excited and freaking out about certain things. Worst theater, I don't really have one that stands out. I've had a couple that kind of sucked because people would be on their phones or something like that. But I mean, I feel like that's just something I deal with more and more nowadays, and it drives me nuts. I love seeing movies in a crowded theater, but I almost get more happy nowadays when I'm walking and I'm by myself, despite the fact that doesn't really give good optics for how the movie's going to succeed. I like seeing it by myself because there's no chance anybody's going to fuck up the experience for me. So yeah, I can't think of one specifically. But you know, horror movies tend to be rough because, you know, phone glare or whatever will pull you out of the experience more than any other genre. And horror films tend to attract the obnoxious teenagers and things like that more than others. So I can't think of one specifically, but I've had a couple that sucked this year for sure. Opinion on metalcore, like whatever that is. I haven't really experienced much with it. I'm pretty closed-minded when it comes to music. I got to be honest. It's definitely a flaw of mine. I love rock and metal, but within a certain parameter. When you say metalcore, I don't even really know what that means. Like the definition kind of escapes me. So I really don't have an opinion on it. Maybe there's a band that I've listened to that would qualify as metalcore. I just don't realize. But there's so many different like subgenres of metal that, aside from like death metal, I think is pretty easy to define. The rest of them, I'm like, what does that even mean? So yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, bud, but I don't know. Jared Arnold, thank you. Cody, thoughts on HBO Tales from the Crypt series? Any chance of a review one day? Wish it were streaming. Would think HBO Max would have it, but nope. No chance for a review. I mean, if I was going to do one, I would have done it back whenever it was airing. But I, I really don't. Tales from the is this a reboot or is this the older one that was in the 90s? Because I can't remember if they did a reboot or not. Obviously, I wouldn't have been able to review it when I was a kid, but as odd as it might seem, I completely missed the boat on Tales from the Crypt. I never saw a single episode as a kid. And I don't know if it's because it was on later than I was awake or if I just one of those things I just happened to miss. I mean, it was a major thing in my childhood. It was a big pop culture thing. I mean, the Crypt Keeper was as iconic as Freddy and Michael and Jason to me. You go to Halloween stores or whatever, there was always Crypt Keeper stuff, but I just never watched it. So I've seen Demon Knight, I've seen Bordello of Blood, but that's really the extent of my experience with it. So maybe one day it would be fun to kind of dive into the old episodes if it does come to streaming. If you're talking about a reboot, I'm not familiar with it. But yeah, if you're talking about the older series, I doubt I would do a review series of it, but it would be fun one day to maybe just dive into it and check it out because I still watch some of the old like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps episodes. I still get a kick out of those. Ooh, hang on. Let me unstar the ones that I've asked already. All right. Eric, what are your fears and excitements about 28 years later? I mean, excitements is the fact that we're getting another one, and it's the director, I think writer as well. And I'm not sure if they confirmed it or not, but they at least heavily suggested that Killian Murphy is going to come back. So that gives me hope that they have something there that's attracting all these people, especially like Killian Murphy, who has gone on to do a ton of things and just won an Oscar and doesn't need to do a 28 Days Later sequel. Fears, I don't really have any fears for it. I mean, both of the other films are fucking awesome. They're among my top 5 zombie films of all time, so I have no reason to think it's going to suck. I just what story are they going to come up with? 28 Weeks Later was a very interesting expansion off of 28 Days Later. Now we're years later. What is it going to look like? So no fears yet. Just excitement, just optimism. Jason Rodriguez, awesome content. Any news about when the Autop stream is? Also love seeing your reviews after my girl and I watch movies to compare notes. Awesome, man. Well, I'm glad you have fun with that. That's how it should be. The Autop stream, I assume you're talking about the 31 on 31 debrief. That's going to be this Sunday. So we officially locked that in. I haven't announced it or made a graphic for it or anything, but yeah, CP got his video done last week sometime. And so we've been talking about it. And this weekend is the only weekend that I'm able to do. And luckily the other guys are free. So I think we have 3 p.m. Eastern locked in for this Sunday. So we'll get that knocked out. So I hope you guys enjoy that late, but better late than never. Desi, congrats. 150 is amazing. You deserve it. Thank you so much. Yes, it was a number that kind of snuck up on me. 100K was the big one because that's where you get the silver play button, and that's the big number, that your first major milestone. And then 150 kind of just popped up, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, cool. But yeah, full steam ahead. I'm gonna keep it going. Any interest in checking out reviewing Welcome to Derry? I'm sure I will when it comes out. I don't really know what to expect of it. I was not. I really enjoyed the first It movie, despite the overuse of CGI. It Chapter 2, I did not like at all, and I like it less every time I watch it. The TV series, I mean, aside from just it's popular, it made money, so let's do more. They haven't really sold me on what they're doing yet. I'm glad that Bill Skarsgård's coming back. That was kind of weird when it was announced for a while that he wasn't. It's like, well, what the fuck are we doing then? But yeah, I'm curious about it. So I'm sure. Actually, I'm positive I will be doing a review for that for sure. So. I don't remember exactly when it's coming out, but we'll see. Would you go back and give a 5 out of 5 to any recent movies that you didn't initially? Also, if you haven't seen Blowout, it would be right up your alley. I bought Blowout and it got stuck on the the black hole back there. You know, I have such an extensive Blu-ray collection. Sometimes I buy shit with the intention of finally checking it out, and then it just kind of gets filed in and then forgotten. So I would like to check it out at some point. Would I give a 5 out of 5 to any movies I didn't initially? No. I mean, a 5 out of 5 for a new film is extremely rare for me. I might have only done it once with the Batman. You know, I don't give out 5 out of 5s in general very flippantly. It literally has to be a movie where I cannot imagine it being better. You know, that's pretty much my criteria for it. And even movies that I think are phenomenal, usually I'll top out at 4.75 because there's usually something I'm like, you know, this one scene, this thing here could have been better. It's rare for me to see a movie and be like, legitimately, I don't like, we can discuss things that other people have issues with and we can debate back and forth, but there's just nothing that I dislike about this. And so, no, that's not really something I've experienced yet where I have a film that gets close and then on rewatch I'm like, never mind, it's perfect. So no, not yet anyway. Cody, love you, Cody. Can you excuse me? That was like saying the same thing 5 times fast. Cody Gill, love you, Cody. Can you tell the story of how your love of film came to be the exact movie or moment and or came to be the exact movie or moment and you were like, damn, I love film and want that to be my life? I don't think there was ever a point where I was like, I want that to be my life. I kind of just slipped into this. I mean, I've always been a movie whore. I mean, people that went to school with me back when I was a kid, like I literally used to get made fun of because I would always bring up movies and talk about movies. I would always go see the new release and want to talk about it with people. The teacher would be given a lesson and it would relate to some film that I've seen, and I'd raise my hand and be like, "Oh, it's like this scene in fucking The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger." So it was something that it's always been a big piece of my personality. I don't know if there's really a movie. I think just in my childhood in general, not that I had like a horrible childhood. It's actually remarkable how normal my childhood was given a lot of the shit that I had to endure. And that's all credit to how amazing my dad was. But there was a lot of things going on in my childhood where I needed to escape. You know, I wanted to kind of just live in a different reality for a couple of hours, and movies allowed me to do that as well as video games, much more so movies early on though. And so that was just kind of something that just happened, you know, whether it was Chucky and Freddy or Terminator or Back to the Future or even some Disney movies that I watched as a kid. Like, it was always my escape. It was me able to just kind of sit there and just kind of block out all the bullshit and just enjoy myself for a couple of hours. So it really just kind of stemmed from that. And you know, over time I started to kind of develop more about what I love about film, why I love film, what I want to see in film as my taste developed and I matured. There wasn't like a moment. What is this?
You don't have to give me that much of a screen there. Oh, you can't hear me.
I can hear you. What's up?
You don't have to give me that much of a screen. I was going to try to help you because all that color in the chat, you're going to lose your voice within 5 minutes. You can get rid of me. I'll help you with the reading of the chat.
Okay. Appreciate it. See, this is what happens when CP's late with a video. He owes me a bunch of favors, and I just get to cash them in every once in a while. All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate it. I'll bring you in if anybody asks a group question. I'll pop you in here and there. But
unnecessary.
Okay. Thanks, chat bitch. Anyway, so yeah, that's really the story there. It's there wasn't like a moment or a film or a scene. It was just kind of over time. Thank you for the question, though. It's a good one. Let's see here. Cheyenne Miller, can you give me quick opinions on the following movie: Man on Fire with Denzel Washington, The Patriot with Mel Gibson, Sicario? Love your channel, bro. Keep up the good work. Man on Fire is awesome. It's one of the best Denzel Washington movies for sure. I think it is his best film with Tony Scott. If you haven't seen it, it is. It's like a revenge action thriller. It's one of his best characters too. And so yes, that movie is pretty phenomenal. The Patriot with Mel Gibson, I haven't watched it in a long time. Which it was always my favorite Roland Emmerich film. I'm not really big into disaster stuff, but I think that Patriot is awesome, and also one of my favorite Mel Gibson movies. I haven't watched it in a long time though, so maybe there's some flaws that would pop up for me as an adult. Sicario I've only seen once. I've Villeneuve is one of those filmmakers that more times than not, I respect what he's doing more than I enjoy it. You have like Blade Runner 2049 that I like quite a bit. You have the Dune movies that I like quite a bit. His other ones are just kind of like, wow, that was very well made. I don't know if I'll ever watch that again. And Sicario is kind of in that group. I'm due for a rewatch though. How do you feel about RDJ being cast as Doctor Doom? Not happy. I think it's desperate, and I'm not really a fan of it. Robert Downey Jr. is awesome, and I think that there might be some interesting things that come from that with the implications of basically an evil Tony Stark. But that's also what I dislike about it. Like, Doctor Doom should be a character that can stand on his own, and it feels like they're using a casting gimmick to build hype because they've kind of shit the bed a little bit. So yeah, that's one that I'm not a massive fan of that idea, but we'll see. You know, Robert Downey Jr. is awesome, so that's the only thing that gives me faith is I know he's going to do a good job. Where did that one come from? I'm going to start with a Darko Morty C132, $5. Thank you so much. Trying to go in order, CP. Hang on. if I fuck up and slip off the road, I'll give you the signal flare. I think It Follows and Drag Me to Hell are two classics that arrived under the radar. I'm a fan of both. What movie do you think has that honor today? That arrived under the radar? I think the entire X trilogy, really. I mean, that who saw that coming? Who saw X being as good as it was? I know some people don't like it. I love it. And then saw Pearl and Maxine coming from that. So I think easily those are the ones that just kind of arrived under the radar. More so X. You know, the other ones got hyped because of X, but that was the biggest surprise in horror that we've had in a long time, in my opinion. Are you looking forward to the Robert Eggers Nosferatu? What are your thoughts about it in general? I am looking forward to it. I really love the fact that we're getting vampire films again, and this one seems like the most serious of any of the ones that we've gotten, where we've gotten a lot of fun ones, a lot of campy ones here over the last couple of years. And my only concern about it is that I haven't loved all of Eggers' films. Like The Witch is, again, one of those movies I would say I respect more than I enjoy. Very slow, kind of a one and done for me. I did not like The Lighthouse whatsoever, but The Northman was pretty kick-ass. So I have faith it's going to be good. It's just a matter of how much weird stuff he puts in there. There's always an odd thing with like characters just farting randomly and shit like that. So I could do without that. If we could just do a dead serious throwback, you know, old school vampire flick, I think he'll do phenomenal. Noah, thank you so much. Nicholas, thoughts on all three Back to the Futures? First one is, if any movie can be accused of being a perfect film, that's the first one. It's in my top 5 of all time. I absolutely love it. The second one, I have always had a lot of fun with. As a kid, it was probably my favorite of the sequels. But as an adult, I always seem to like lose interest in the last act. Like as soon as it goes into retreading the events of the first film, I think it gets less interesting, but it's still a really good movie. It's still a lot of fun and very imaginative. And then the third film is actually my favorite of the two as an adult. I think that it stands out. It's a little more unique. And as a trilogy, they're all great. Like it's one of the best trilogies of all time. Noah, thank you. Congrats on 150K. Is the opening to Deadpool and Wolverine the best opening in an MCU movie ever, in your opinion? It's certainly in the conversation. I mean, you had Guardians of the Galaxy that was great. I'm trying to think of some others. Off the top of my head, it's going to be hard. I'd have to prepare for that one. But Deadpool and Wolverine, the opening to that movie with the end sync and everything is just, it's hilarious. It's fun. Despite what one of me and Charles' mutual friends think, the slow-mo is actually merited. So love you, Rudy. Anyway, yes, it's definitely in the conversation, if not the crown holder. Had enough. Thank you so much. Have you been buying much physical media lately, and what's your shelf space like now? Not a ton of it. I probably have a good 15 or so that I have stacked up for off the shelves video soon. As far as shelf space, I probably got another year before I need to really worry and, you know, decide which kid I'm going to kick out of my house so that I can have a Blu-ray room. But yeah, we're doing okay. Hi, Cody. Congrats on 150 subs, 150K subs. You deserve it. Have you seen the 70s house horror movies? Thoughts on the franchise? House horror movies. I am not familiar with those whatsoever. So you said house, and I'm immediately thinking of the movie from the 80s with the guy from William Catt. So that's the only movie called House that I have seen. The other ones I'm not familiar with, but thank you. Let me take a gander at the chat really quick just to make sure. Sometimes I get caught up in super chats and they're like, we got a troll. We got somebody spamming. Looks okay. Okay. If we were to do a top 100 horror movies of all time, what movies do you think would be in there for sure? Well, I've done a top 50 horror movies of all time. Now, I would need to update it because it has certainly changed since then. But I mean, movies like my obvious ones like Lost Boys, The Thing, Dream Warriors, Child's Play 2, things like that. You would also have The Shine and Dr. Sleep in there. You would have both Trick or Treat movies, the metal movie from the 80s, as well as the horror anthology. I would throw X in there now. You have movies like Barbarian, I would probably throw in there now. Abigail might crack the list. I mean, any of my favorites of the last 5 years had the potential to probably be thrown in there. So a pretty wild list there. Okay, so I have been informed by Chat Bitch that House Japanese horror fucking weirdo shit. So no, no, and no. I have not experienced any of that. So thank you, Mr. Chat Bitch. Are you going to see and review stream? Thoughts on it? I am. I've actually talked back and forth with the director a couple of times, Michael. Now, he's one of the producers of Terrifier 2. So I don't know if I've met him. I know that he was at Fantastic Fest when Terrifier 2 premiered. So I might have. But nonetheless, I've talked with him a little bit here and there. He actually sent me a shirt, a stream shirt, which is pretty badass. So that was really cool. I'm curious about it. You know, it's got all of the flavor of what we're kind of loving about Terrifier. It's got a lot of those gore effects from what I'm hearing, and it's got an interesting little horror alumni cast. That is the only thing that gives me pause, though. As much as I love a lot of the actors that are like our sacred horror alumni, when I see a movie that puts a lot of them in there, I never know if that's going to be a cool thing or if it's going to end up just kind of being a who's who. But we'll see. It looks like it's going to be fun. I hope I have a chance to see it and review it before I leave for Phoenix. So we'll see. But yes, I will review it at some point. Return of the King swept the Oscars, winning all 11 Oscars it was nominated for. Your thoughts on the trilogy? Another thing that I respect more than I enjoy. You know, I've seen the trilogy. We did a 31 on 31 fantasy a couple of years back, and I made the mistake of watching the extended editions because a lot of people said, you got to watch these. This is the only ones that matter. Do not watch the extended editions for the first time because they are a lot. I mean, production wise, I marvel at what they were able to do. It's like, I would never want to be in charge of a movie like that, even with experience as a director. But I'm not really big into fantasy. So there's things that I like about it. There's sequences that I thought were cool. There's characters that I thought were cool. I don't see myself ever rewatching them. So I know that gets me in trouble sometimes because they're, you know, greatest of all time trilogy, but it's just not for me. Thanks for your time on Friday, Cody. People really dug the episode. Hey, got the guys over here from the Slaughtered Lamb. So yes, if you guys have not seen that podcast episode on their channel, it's on my community page. Just scroll back maybe 4 posts or so. We talked about some of our favorite movie set pieces. We went by genre. So definitely check that out. And yes, thank you guys for the invite. That was a good time. I appreciated the fact, like I told you after we were live, that you came up with a really interesting topic. Hey, congrats on 150K, my favorite movie reviewer. Thank you. I appreciate that. Never get tired of hearing that. So, Living Vampire. Cody, what's up with the rise of anti-woke YouTubers these past few years? They have the most unfair and toxic criticisms. I mean, both sides. Both sides have risen and have kind of run rampant. You got one side where, you know, they're pushing everything that, like, for example, the people that I dealt with last weekend that were calling me ists and isms because I didn't love I Saw the TV Glow. You know, there's that side of YouTube and Twitter, and then you have the other side that rises up against them that says that goes hard in the other direction. And they're both equally fucking nuts. They're both equally ridiculous. And all of us in the middle that actually have common sense and reasonable opinions are just stuck in this screaming match. So All I can suggest is if you don't like what they have to say, don't watch them, don't comment, don't share their shit, because most of them are full of shit. Most of them don't really believe in what they're peddling. Maybe they do a certain percentage, but they just continue to talk about it because people continue to engage with it. Like, do you honestly believe any of these guys hate Brie Larson that much? If you had to pick a gaming franchise to delete of these two, which would it be? Metal Gear or Resident Evil? I'm gonna figure out who's making me make this decision and delete them. What the fuck? Metal Gear or Resident Evil? That's like asking me to. It's Sophie's choice. You know, I can't fucking. Resident Evil is my favorite video game franchise, so I think if I have to pick, I'll delete Metal Gear. But that's, like I said, that's literally like deleting one of my kids, because Metal Gear, the original Metal Gear Solid, is my favorite video game of all time. But yeah, that's a very mean question. Very mean question. If you could pair any final girl with any horror villain for your own movie, which two would you pick? Love the channel. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Pair a final girl with a villain. I think it would be interesting to see Sidney Prescott face off against any of the immortal killers. You know, she's probably the most badass of the slasher traditional final girls. But she's also facing people who are human, who change every single time and have a certain amount of dumbassery with them. So give Sidney Prescott a situation where she has to fight off against Freddy or Michael or Jason. And I think that would be pretty awesome. So that is my answer for that one. Have you thought of one day writing your own horror movie, given how knowledgeable you are of the genre? I have. Actually, I was talking with Mr. Chatbitch just a couple of days ago about a couple of ideas that I have. He named himself that, by the way. I'm not continuously degrading my friend here. It literally says chat bitch below where you guys can't even see it. But yeah, I have a couple of ideas that I've written down. One of them I've talked about live before, which is kind of like a vampire film that's going to explore father-son relations. I think that would be pretty cool. I've changed and tweaked and developed the idea of it a little bit. I haven't sat down to like fully write it out. But that's one that if I do sit down and write a movie script, that's probably going to be the one that I do first. I have another one that I've thought of, which would be like a twist on a haunted house scenario where the people that inhabit the house end up being the villains and the ghosts end up being the protagonists at some point in the film. I won't talk anymore about how that happens, but I'm big on subverting cliches and the genres. And then another one, which is more of a horror short that I talked to CP about as well. So I do have ideas, yes. A lot of people ask me, like, why don't you direct a fan film? Why don't you direct a horror film? I don't know where the fuck to even begin with directing anything. I have no experience, no education, and no business doing anything like that until that changes. But writing something, I'd be very passionate about. Do you like Pantera? Excited for the new Crow movie? I do like Pantera. I don't like all of their stuff. Some of it's a little rough for me, but in general, I do like a lot of their music. They were fucking awesome a couple years ago at Rockville. They blew people off the stage. So that was very cool. And excited for the new Crow movie. I'm curious about it. It's not a movie that I think we need. There's a lot of weirdness that comes along with remaking a movie that somebody's died on. Also, we've had 3 sequels, and a sequel to The Crow is basically like a remake to The Crow. It's the same story. So for all intents and purposes, this is going to be the 5th time that we've experienced this story. And the trailer looked interesting. I wasn't crazy about it, but we'll see. Do you think there should be a Bigfoot horror movie? I mean, I'm sure somebody out there could do a good version of it. That's not something that I would immediately get interested off of that premise just in writing. But yeah, you could do something interesting with that. Cody, do you think Terrifier will be today's horror franchise like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street was back in the days? I think it already is. I mean, maybe not on that level. Maybe not on that level of like pop culture consciousness and popularity, but aside from Saw, like we haven't really had a horror franchise get the level of attention and the level of notoriety this fast like we have Terrifier. I was kind of skeptical of it when Terrifier 1 came out, and people were already trying to like hand Art the Crown, new horror icon of the decade. But with Terrifier 2 and how that movie just exploded at the box office and became like this big, this very pop culture thing with art popping up everywhere, I think that if we have anything that's even approaching the conversation of that, it's Terrifier nowadays. Hey, Cody, congrats on 150K. Thank you. What are your thoughts on the two Sinister movies? Complicated feelings, because the first one I think is a really good horror flick, but I've never really been able to love it because the trailer is like a classic Blumhouse trailer where they're like, here's the whole film in 2 minutes. And so the first time that I saw it, every little shock, surprise, scare was basically in the trailer for the most part. So I've never loved it on the level that some have because of that. I've rewatched it a number of times, and I think it's a really cool idea. I think Bagul has a lot of potential. Ethan Hawke is great. The little Super 8 movies are fucking twisted. So there's a lot of things in it that I love, but the movie itself I've never exactly loved. Only saw Sinister 2 once, and it's not very good. Now, I have heard a lot of behind the scenes info on Sinister 2 that makes it very fascinating to me, that makes me want to check it out again. Without saying too much, my buddy Joey Sasso, that some of you guys know, actually knows the person that that made that movie. And so there's a lot of movie studio politics bullshit that made that film turn out the way that it did. So I'm curious to give it another look, knowing what I know now. Thank you for the $50, by the way. That's very generous. Hey, Cody, hope you're doing great. Love your content. What's some horror movies you'd actually be down for a modern remake? I actually was talking about this, believe it or not, before they started talking about it in some of the trades. I always thought that People Under the Stairs would be something that's ripe for a modern remake. And especially after Jordan Peele's, I think by his second film, I was saying he'd be a cool guy to do it. And now that's been somewhat announced that he's producing a version of that. So that would be cool. I also think that whether it's a remake or a sequel that's decades later, I think Christine would be really cool with today's technology and stuff. I don't necessarily want to see them CG the car, but just I think they could do a lot more with it. And so that would be something I'd be curious to see. I could probably list off some more, but those are the first two that come to my head. Congrats on 150K. Been watching for 4 years, and you keep winning. Keep being you and shine on. I try my best, but yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Sometimes it feels like I'm losing, but then you just got to get back in the game. Living Vampire. Cody, what is the worst bathroom break that you had in a movie theater? I'm usually pretty good about not having to go to the bathroom. The only movies that have kind of been a bitch to get through is things like basically anything Martin Scorsese's done over the last 5 years, and a couple others. But the only one that I could think of that was rough was, I'm going to try not to get too graphic with the details here, but it's when I went to go see, what the fuck is that Jennifer Lawrence movie that just came out last year? Somebody in the chat will know it, I'm sure. But yeah, I just saw it last year, the rated R comedy, sex comedy, where she's taken money to sleep with this kid who's kind of like a socially awkward nerd. And let's just say I stopped to eat something really quick before the movie because I was not going to be able to eat dinner afterwards, and was not a wise decision. So like literally 5 minutes into the movie, my stomach's like, I'm like, oh fuck, I've seen this scene in the trailer, I know what's gonna happen. And so that's the only thing I can think of that's happened in years. No hard feelings. Thank you, Bree Hunter. Yes, so no hard feelings. Oh, and chat bitch got it. So whoever was first. But yeah, that's the only story where I've had a bad little bathroom break in between in a movie. Usually I'm pretty good about not having to go. Disney nerd. Sean Chandler's appointed, well, I would say chat bitch, but I don't want to offend him. So I don't know what his I don't know what his sense of humor is, but he's Sean Chandler's CP. Have you seen stop motion underrated film this year? I have not. I've heard some pretty good things about it. Whenever I'm pretty sure it's found footage, is it not? I could be wrong. I'm a little hesitant with Shudder movies that I don't see at film festivals, because the last couple that I've seen are movies like Dashcam, And so it's like, I don't really need any more from my bottom 10. I'm good. But I've heard good things about stop motion. So I'm sure that's one of those movies I'll keep in the back of my head and try to catch up with at some point before the end of the year. But thanks for the recommendation and reminding me I need to check that thing out. Thoughts on the MPAA and how it butchered so many of the Friday the 13th films, and now we have films like Terrifier 2 where people get killed worse. Yeah, I mean, it was a weird era. You know, it's one of the things that they explore in Maxine that I feel like a lot of people have kind of glossed over, where it really kind of sets you in the middle of that satanic panic era in the 80s where religion especially started to be kind of rampant with public office and with a lot of parents. And so they were protesting and trying to put rules and regulations for films and music and things like that. So you had heavy metal artists that were being censored, and they were, you know, we had Dee Snider literally had to go into court and battle Al Gore's wife. And so you had that, and then you had a lot of movies that were just getting edited all to shit, and some, you know, horribly so. Like Friday the 13th Part 7, I am confident if we ever got to see the unedited version of that movie, it would probably be one of my favorites. But as is, it's neutered as fuck. So yeah, it sucked. It's something that it seems like we have kind of gotten past, although there's still some weird stuff with the MPAA. It's very weird. Some of it's just American culture. It's very weird how violence is treated as opposed to sexuality. Pretty much everybody on earth at some point is going to have sex. Yet we treat it like this weird taboo thing that we can't talk about, can't look at. Otherwise, it's like inappropriate. Yet we'll split somebody in half from fucking stem to sternum, or, you know, torture them for 5 minutes straight in a Terrifier film. And it's like, okay, go check it out, kids. So it's very weird. But yes, in the 80s, especially, the MPAA fucked up a lot of shit. Congrats on 150K. Have you seen the Swedish Girl with the Dragon Tattoo? If so, do you like that or Fincher's version better? I have not seen it. Actually, whenever I started to get really interested in that franchise because of the Fincher movie, I was still very much a stubborn bastard that did not want to read my movies. So at that point, there was like, nope, never going to watch the one with subtitles. Now I watched quite a few foreign films a year, especially at these film festivals. So that is a trilogy that I need to check out, because I have had blue balls on that story with David Fincher's film being a one and done for whatever reason that turned out to be. So I would like to see what the rest of that story is. So yes, that is something I need to put on the CVS receipts of movies that I need to check out. Have you seen the Retro Realms Halloween and Ash versus Evil Dead game? I was just talking to Chat Bitch about that today. Any thoughts? Also, are you are awesome and have completely changed my view of horror. Okay, hopefully for the better. But I appreciate that. Halloween and Ash versus Evil Dead game. Yeah, so there was an announcement a couple of days ago that there was going to be 2 different Halloween games, one of which was going to have some involvement from John Carpenter, and everybody got excited. And then it was revealed that one of them, at least, is going to be this old retro 80s style little side scroller where you get to be, you know, 8-bit Michael Myers. I have zero interest in that. We talked about it on Charles's stream the other night. So I messaged him. I was like, yeah, that game we were talking about is a fucking side scroller. And both of us were like, pfft. So maybe it'll end up being some fun, but I don't really get much enjoyment out of those, that level of throwback. So I have no interest in that. Top 3 favorite Shameless characters. Ooh, change up the pace a bit. Lip, Kevin, and Fiona. Now, Fiona had some bad seasons for sure, but overall, I think she was the heart of the show. And as soon as she left the show, that show nosedived. Those last 2 seasons were horrible. But Lip and Kevin were always my 2 favorites. You know, I feel like Lip, I wish they would have done more with his character to actually kind of resolve some of the shit from the first couple seasons, like him going to college and having to leave college. And, you know, they just kept doing new things with him, which is good, but never really resolving things that were left hanging. And Kevin was always just fucking hilarious. So, without Charles, without. Dark Room Reviews, appreciate it. Nerdy Mastermind, with live streaming being so popular and a great way to connect with fans, is there a reason why you don't go live more often? Also seems like less maintenance than video editing. I prefer video editing. I prefer the final product when I'm in control of it and I can control the pacing of it and I can add graphics and videos and whatever else I want. So yeah, I've over time, especially since going full time, I have strayed away from doing so many live streams and I really try to focus on the edited content. Not only because I enjoy it more and I like the final product better, but it performs better. A lot of channels that I see where they do most of their stuff live stream style because it's easier, they don't really get the payoff as much as they would if they put the time into video editing because I think most people, when they click on a video, if it's a topic or a thumbnail that they're interested in, a lot of people, when they notice it's a live stream, they click off. Not always, but live streams are more long-winded. They're a lot more free form and chaotic. There's chat questions that sometimes can disrupt the flow of what we're talking about sometimes if you're trying to stay onto a topic. I mean, you guys have seen it numerous times. We'll do a topic like we're talking Last of Us today, and we'll get a super chat. What do you think about Halloween? So it happens. But yeah, that's the main reason why. I do need to do more of them. Part of the reason I haven't done more of them is because the things I used to like doing live streams for, just like Last of Us and Chucky, I don't want to do them for Chucky anymore. And Last of Us isn't out yet, until next year. So yeah, aside from debriefs and some random Q&As, that's pretty much what I stick to nowadays. But I'll take it into consideration. I'm always somebody that tries to talk with you guys about what you want to see more of and less of. And if a lot of you guys want to see more lives, then I'll try to incorporate more of those. But that's the reason why I just like the end product of edited style stuff better. Will Star Wars Outlaws revive the Game Chamber? Yeah. On the subject of the Game Chamber, I'm sorry about that. Like, that's a channel that I was really pumped about, and then I launched it, and then no video games came out for months. And so the very first year was just kind of like a months of lull because there was just nothing to discuss that was new. And then things just got busy. And then this year's been the same thing. Like, we haven't had anything since Helldivers, at least that I play. So Star Wars Outlaws is something I want to play. I will likely start doing live streams again for that, as well as Dead Rising. Dead Rising's got a remastered coming out that I would love to play online, live in front of you guys. So I do apologize about the fact that channel was very much supposed to be a continuous thing for me, and it's just kind of turned into something that I neglect here and there because this channel just takes all of my time and energy away. But yes, long-winded answer for a simple question. Yes. Who's an actor regarded as being great that you just don't see it? Well, I can't think of an actor where it's like they're regarded as being great and I just don't think they're a good actor. There are actors that I just don't really care for their style, or I don't really care for their films. The classic answer for me on that one is Cary Elwes. For whatever reason, he's got this very quirky style. Even the way that he talks is like almost like he's trying to sound Shakespearean sometimes. And then you have things like Liar Liar, where he's very goofy with the claw. And so, like, there's things that I like him in, but he's one of those actors that traditionally I don't love what he brings. No hate against the guy. A lot of people love him. He seems like a cool dude. He was at MegaCon this past time that I went there. But yeah, if there's anyone that like is a pretty well-known actor that just for some reason their work doesn't really do much for me, that'd be one that comes to mind. Cody, love the channel. We got 2 Halloween games coming out. What do you think of a Halloween game with the style of an Until Dawn? I like that idea. That was something that I presented whenever we were talking about the other night that I think would probably be the one that Carpenter's working on, because he had said something about the game's going to take you through scenarios of the movie. So that's the only one that makes sense to me. I wish more games would do that, actually. I wish if we're going to get more horror property, IP-based games, do something like that versus just everybody trying to do Dead by Daylight. Texas Chainsaw was a nice surprise. Friday the 13th was just okay. Got old quick. Evil Dead got old in an hour. That game I didn't like at all. And I don't really need to see other versions of that with Freddy or anybody else. So if we start getting more games where it's like we're going to put you in the movie and actually let you make decisions and maybe the story can go in different directions, that interests me as a fan of those movies. When will the 31 on 31 debrief happen? We need it, not to hear your individual thoughts on the movies, but for our yearly dose of Brian versus CP. I wholeheartedly agree. And I will tell you that with how on opposite ends of the galaxy CP and Brian's taste in comedy is, I will be shocked if we don't have 3 of those moments in this debrief. But it's happening this Sunday. This Sunday at 3 p.m. is what we have locked in, 3 p.m. Eastern. So looking forward to that. If you could choose a location for the premonition event in a Final Destination movie, what would it be? Mine would have been at some convention or concert. That's an interesting question. That's one I would have to prepare for. It's hard for me to think of one off the top of my head. I mean, you could think of anything. I mean, we had planes, we had cars, we had cars twice technically because of the bridge thing. We had cars a third time at a race, so a lot of car shit. And then we had roller coaster. So maybe like a boat. Haven't seen anything with that yet. You could also have like an earthquake or some kind of natural disaster that it takes place in it. There's a lot of places you could go. That's one I'd have to prepare for. So sorry I don't have a better answer for you, but we did get an announcement that movie is coming out next year, though, the new Final Destination. So looking forward to that. With Leigh Whannell's Wolfman and James Wan being linked to Creature from the Black Lagoon, thoughts on a slow rebuilding of Universal Monster Movies franchise? Also, congrats on 150K. Thank you, and fuck yes, I'm here for it. Like, Leigh Whannell has proven that he can do really cool modern twists on those monsters with The Invisible Man, and I can't wait to see his Wolfman movie. James Wan is somebody that I love to see in do cool, crazy things. Last thing he did was Malignant, which I didn't love when I first saw it, and then I rewatched it and instantly fell in love with it. Like, I like how batshit it is. So if there's any pairing that I would be really interested to see what their modern version of these monsters is, it's those two guys. So I'm here for it. Who am I? I don't know, but thank you. Hi, Cody. Are there any standout British films that you enjoy? Mine is Jonathan Glazer's Sexy Beast. Massive respect all the way from the UK. I have made a very strong stance that until Brian Lomax admits that Critters is terrible, I will not be watching any UK films. No, I'm joking. In general, British films are a little rough for me because the humor throws me off so much. As many as I've seen, like a lot of the Edgar Wright movies and things like Dog Soldiers, like I just don't get British humor. Even the ones that I do like Hot Fuzz, like it takes me a couple watches to really fully appreciate it. So I have not dove into too much UK cinema. So no, I've never heard of Sexy Beast. One that Brian continuously tries to get me to watch is called Dead Man's Shoes. So if I do watch one, that will be the one just to get him off my back. He actually like held Breaking Bad hostage and said, I will not watch this show until you watch Dead Man's Shoes. Well, he's 2.5 seasons in, so I guess I win. Based off of what Martin Scorsese said about Marvel movies in the past, what's your response, argument? Do you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts? I mean, so there's a lot of like the old school filmmakers that have said something derogatory towards Marvel, and I think that there's something in what they're saying that is accurate and is founded, and I understand their perspective, which is nowadays we're in a time where IP is what gets movies made, and Marvel being the biggest one. If it's not going to be this 4-quadrant blockbuster, it's a bitch to get your movie made, with the exception of people that can get things funded like Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon. So a lot of these statements are them kind of trying to verbalize the frustration. And Quentin Tarantino's one too, you can throw in there that has said a variation of this, where the death of cinema, or cinema heading in a direction that they don't really favor, is because there's not as much variety in what gets funded and what gets produced nowadays, as opposed to it used to be whatever was a really good story, what producers had faith in on the story front, not just what's going to sell toys and what's going to make $1 billion. So that side of it, I understand and I agree with. I don't think it's quite as dire as a lot of people make it out to be. I mean, we get a lot of original films nowadays. They're just the ones that a lot of people just don't go see. And that's the reason why they don't get funded, because they make $2 million with this one. They make $1 billion with this one. Which one would you want? Then you have the side of it where there's just the word choices that they use, which is like, this is not cinema, or these are not movies or theme park rides. No, they're movies. Like, some of them are better than others, and there's certainly some that don't have a whole lot on the bones, like Transformers, where it's just about seeing metal crunch and CGI. But they're movies. Like, a lot of Marvel films, a lot of DC films are really great stories, good characters. You know, they touch you on an emotional level. It's not just about suits and capes flying around in a green screen. So I think there's something about what they're saying that I understand and I agree with, and there's another part of it that's like old man yelling at cloud. If you could have two icons fight, Freddy versus Jason style, who would it be and why? I mean, I feel like Freddy versus Jason was the only one that really made sense. If they were gonna bring somebody in and have it be like a Royal Rumble, I think Michael was the safest bet at the time, but it never happened. Or Ash Williams, if you wanted to have like a hero to throw in there. But in general, I can't really think of a Freddy versus Jason style movie with others that I would be interested in. Like, you know, Chucky versus Leprechaun. No thanks. I don't need that. I don't need that. Or Chucky versus Megan, which pretty likely that's going to happen. Don't need that. Michael versus Jason. Two people that don't talk fighting for 90 minutes. I just don't think it would work. So I'm not the person to ask. I know it's just for fun, but I just can't think of another pairing that would be entertaining. Thoughts on S. Craig Zoller? 3 for 3, as far as I'm concerned. I love his movies. I think that they're really interesting. They're unique. They kind of play out like novels in a way. I'm due for a rewatch on Bone Tomahawk. I have not seen that one in a long time, but Brawl and Subblock 99 I love, and Dragged Across Concrete I thought was really good too. So I really like what that guy does. I'm seeing Coraline for its 15th anniversary tomorrow. What are your thoughts on that film and Leica Studios in general? Not the best guy to ask. I have seen pieces of Coraline because my daughter likes it, but in general, Leica Studio, are they the one that did Kubo and the Two Strings? Because I think that might be the only one that I've seen. I'm weird when it comes to animated stuff, because there's a lot of it that I end up thinking is great, but I'm never really in the mood to watch it. And I'm never really all that excited to go see it. Like, even things like Spider-Verse or Inside Out 2, like, I don't get hyped about those movies. I go see them because it's something I could take my kids with, and sometimes they end up being really good. But for some reason, I just always prefer live action. Like, I will watch a 3-star live action film 10 times before I'll watch a 5-star animated film. It's just, I don't have a good reason for it. It's just kind of what my movie taste is. So I have not really dove into Leica Studios too much, but they're well regarded for a reason. You know, the stop motion stuff is pretty incredible. As somebody who's a fan of film, it's like, how do you do this? Just take a shot, move a little bit, take a shot. Like that seems like something that would be agonizing of a process, but they do it. Are you doing Halloween Horror Nights this year? I'm not sure. I haven't reached out to them yet. Last year I only went because I reached out to them and offered to do a video. So I got the admission and the fast pass, more importantly, comped. And I enjoyed myself. I would not pay to go and experience it, especially with the fast pass prices, just because the cost to get to Orlando, get a hotel, plus do the 2 different admissions would not be worth it for me. So it just depends. I'm not sure. I've been really busy this year with trips. I've got a trip next week to Phoenix, Arizona. A month later, I'm going to Austin, Texas for 11 days for Fantastic Fest. So I'm pretty wore out already before those 2 trips. But maybe it's not as enticing as last year, because last year had Chucky, Last of Us, a few others. This one is a lot of their original ones, of course, and then you have Insidious and A Quiet Place, which might be cool, but not as enticing as those other 2 franchises. Were you ever a fan of American Horror Story? I loved the first season. Everybody seemed to love the second season the best. That's the one that kind of lost me. It kind of felt like kitchen sink. It was just everything, and it was a bit much for me. And then the Witches one fell off. 2/3 of the way through, and then I got about 3 episodes into Freak Show, and I was like, I'm done. This kind of show's not hitting for me anymore. Eventually, I did go back and watch the season that was surrounding the election. Is it Cult? American Horror Story Cult, where you had Evan Peters playing like a super right wing guy, and then that one was interesting all the way up until like the last 2 episodes, and then like the other ones, it just kind of fell off and got like really weird and strange. So I almost got back into it, and then season didn't land well, and I was like, all right, well, whatever. And I haven't heard anything great about a season yet. What is your opinion on M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit, a found footage movie exploring their mother's grandparents and why they went missing 18 years? What is your opinion on M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit, a found footage movie exploring their mother's I think you're asking if like he did a sequel or a prequel, I guess. Wouldn't immediately be interested in it. The Visit is decent, but I'm not super crazy about it. So if he was going to do a sequel to one of his films, that's not one that I would be immediately interested in. And M. Night's kind of on a low streak for me. So if you're asking me just my thoughts on The Visit in general, I think it's okay. I did a M. Night ranking last weekend, so you could see my thoughts on all of his films. But yeah, it's not super high. It's not a bad movie. I'm just not crazy about it. I'm a fan of Romero, and with respect to Night of the Dead, my favorite will always be Dawn of the Dead, which is your favorite. I still have not seen the last 2 that he did. What is it? Survival of the Dead and Diary of the Dead. Not that I've heard that they need to be on my priority list, which is why they have not. But I've seen Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and Land of the Dead. And of those 4, Dawn of the Dead is easily the one that I like the most. Second would probably be Day of the Dead, actually. So Night of the Living Dead's brilliant, but it's one of those movies that I just saw way too late. And I've seen all of the movies that it's influenced. So you go back and it's such a basic version of a zombie movie because it was one of the first. And so it just didn't hit for me as much as it did people that grew up with it or saw it years ago. But Dawn of the Dead is great. And Day of the Dead, not nearly as good, but fuck, the practical effects are awesome in that movie. The kills, the gore is just top notch in Day. Excited about new Hellboy. Do you like Del Toro's? I've only seen the first Hellboy from Del Toro, and it was when it came out. So it's been, fuck, what was that? 20 years at this point, maybe a little bit less. They're okay. I haven't seen a Hellboy movie that I've loved yet, and I have no interest in the new one. I mean, it seems weird that they keep trying to do Hellboy when they were so opposed to finishing off Del Toro's trilogy. I know that he was spending a lot of money for what they were making with it, but how much money are they losing with the Neil Marshall film? And now this one's probably going to bomb too. I just wanted to stop and say congrats and say that while watching your Carpenter ranking, my girlfriend confused you for Chris Stuckman. I guess all Ohio men look alike. How dare she? I'm just kidding. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. What is a song you're tired of seeing in movies? Don't Fear the Reaper. Don't Fear the Reaper. For me, it's whenever they reuse the same songs for the 70s period. Oh, yeah, they're right there. I didn't even read. Fear the Reaper is a great song, but it is the most overused song when it comes to horror and thrillers. Anytime there's anything supernatural going on, it's always in there. And anytime it's in the 70s, it's always in there. The only movie that has used it in a way that feels like the song has a true purpose beyond just the most recognizable 70s song for horror films is X. So you have that scene where, it's playing while she's cutting that dude up and the blood spraying on the headlights and framing everything in red color. That is the most brilliant use of that song that I've seen in a long time, maybe ever. But yes, that's a song where every time it plays, I'm like, of course, it's like contractually obligated. Every fucking horror movie has to have this song. Blue Oyster Cult had other hits. Happy is Happier Now. Have you watched Netflix documentaries like The Devil on Trial? It's my recent favorite. Also, have you watched Dagon 2001? It's similar to RE4. No to both. My wife is the documentary person. I make fun of her. I come downstairs and she always is watching one of 3 things. She's either watching a movie that I'll ask, like, what's this? And she can't tell me the title. She can't tell me the premise because she's usually watching it like this. Or she's watching Gilmore Girls for the 17th time, or she's watching a documentary about something really fucked up. It's either every time she's watching a documentary, I always make fun of her. I'm like, let me guess. This is about children that grew up in a house where they were being abused and then they turned into murderers and now they're in prison. Like, it's always like the most fucked up piece of society. She gets really interested in that for some reason. So no, my wife's a documentary person. I've enjoyed a few. I think the last one that I watched with her was Don't Fuck with Cats, which was pretty riveting. But yeah, in general, I'm not really a big documentary person. Hi, Cody. Congrats. Are you going to see and review Rebel Moon Director's Cut? Review? No. If anything, it will, if I can squeeze it in before the end of the month, it'll be on my little month wrap up that I'll put up September 1st. Or if it takes a while, and I do see it eventually, it'll be in my end of the year ranking. But I just have no interest in it. I have no interest whatsoever to spend another 5.5 hours in that fucking world. Like, they failed miserably to get a lot of us to be interested in seeing extended versions of those films. And if I had heard from a lot of people that I trust that it's like a Zack Snyder's Justice League situation where it's like, dude, it's a totally different experience. Like, don't even bother, like, black those other ones out of your mind and go in because it's so awesome. Like, then I probably would have already seen it. But everybody that I trust, even our resident Zack Snyder horror Rudy, is like, I mean, it's a little bit better. It's cool to see heads explode, but it doesn't really fix any of the issues. Well, then what the fuck? You don't deserve my 5.5 hours of my time then, I'm a lot more defensive of my time nowadays. In the last 2 years, I've tried to ramp up the amount of films that I watch, and I'm still on track to have a pretty high number this year, but I don't want to exhaust myself and burn myself out by feeling like I have to cover shit or I have to watch it because it's out. And Rebel Moon 1 and 2, spend another 5.5 hours on those movies to most likely not really think much better about it. It's not a priority for me. So I might squeeze it in, but if I don't be surprised. What's your top 3 favorite songs from the Load album by Metallica? Always thought that album was underrated. I wholeheartedly agree. Bleeding Me is one of my favorite songs by Metallica, period. I think that Outlaw Torn is pretty kick-ass. And I really like, I mean, King Nothing's great. That was the single. Until It Sleeps was a single as well. Ain't My Bitch, the one that kicks off the album, is pretty cool. So, I mean, that's an album that I think is very underrated. It gets a lot of shit because if you ever walk up to somebody and try to talk Metallica with them and they say they've never been good since they cut their hair, ask them to name 5 Metallica songs that aren't on the Black Album. If they can answer that question, continue talking. If they can't, then just assume they read that somewhere on Reddit and they formed their opinion off of that. Hey, Cody, if you're fine with answering, why haven't you? And oh, you son of a bitch. Average random wanderer. How dare you? If you're fine with answering, why haven't you and Lee McCoy done anything together in a while? I won't get into details with it. We had a falling out that was very public. Both of us have since way beyond moved on. Nobody involved with any of that has drama, bad blood, whatever. We're just, shit happened. Don't do things together anymore. Probably never will. Is what it is. If you like his channel, continue watching it. It's there's no bad blood. There's no drama, but that's why. Drive-in movies, are you a fan of the experience? I used to be. When I was a kid, I fucking loved it. As an adult, it kind of sucks. You as a kid, it's so different. You're like, ooh, we get to sit in the car. We can bring our own fucking snacks. And like, you're looking out and there's all these other cars. It's such a unique thing. I tried to do it as an adult with my kids, and I was like, this is miserable. Like, you have to keep your car engine running the entire time, which just is not good when you're somebody that pays for gas, especially when it's fucking $5 a gallon right now. You're all cramped up in a seat that's not really all that comfortable, and you're looking through a windshield at a screen. I mean, there's just all of the practical stuff of it just kind of sucks as an adult. So I used to. Last time we went to go see Dumbo, and it was going to be followed up by Avengers Endgame. And halfway through Dumbo, I was like, I want to fucking leave. I hate this. I started getting a headache, so that's part of the reason. But yeah, it's it's not something that I will do anytime soon again, I don't think, which sucks because I used to love it. But there's two of them around here. There's one that's in Beaufort, South Carolina, and there's another one that's in it's about an hour west of here in Bumfuck, Georgia. One of them's like 50s themed and is really cool, and the other one is more family owned and a little more modern. But I've been to both of them and not in a rush to go back. Also, I know you've mentioned in the past you have 31 on 31 ideas for days, but after watching your horror remakes tier list, I was wondering if one of those was horror original versus remakes. That's an idea that CP has brought up numerous times that we've had in the back pocket. So yes, that's likely something that's going to happen at some point. It's not in the immediate future, but yeah, me and CP especially all the time bounce off ideas for 31 on 31s. Like I have a text document where I just put themes and I'll try to add up franchises. And so I have like 5 ideas already hammered home. Really, it just depends on new releases because we like to try to kind of form them around hype for new releases to try to kind of ride that wave a bit. So I guess the next time we get a really big horror remake, that might come down the pipe. What's your favorite movie memory with your dad? I mean, I have so many. I mean, most of my movie stories start with me and my dad. One that we always laugh about is when we went to go see Jumanji. So we lived in a trailer when I was young, and we used to walk across the street from our trailer park to the mall. I think it was called Northtown Mall in Toledo, Ohio. It's since closed down, but it was Northtown Mall. We would always go through the back entrance of the McDonald's, have McDonald's, and then go see a movie. That was like our routine. And so Jumanji came out. I was really excited for it. My dad was being a fucking baby about it. He's like, oh, whatever. Like, I'm exaggerating, but he was just like, man, fucking kids movies, like whatever. And so he's taken me to be a good dad. And then we see Jumanji, and then we leave the theater, and he's like, that was a kick-ass movie. That was great. So we joke around about that one all the time because it was just it was such a surprise for him. Another one that he always gives me shit about is Enemy of the State with Will Smith, the Tony Scott movie, which is awesome, by the way, if you haven't seen it. So he wanted to go check it out, and I was interested because I love Will Smith, and it was a late movie. And he's like, if I take you to this, you better not fucking fall asleep. You better not fall asleep. And I was like, no. I'm not going to fall asleep, I promise. And so we go see this movie, and I am not bullshitting when I tell you, like, I was so invested in it, and then I blink, and the credits are rolling, and I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, come on, movie's over. So I dozed off after like 30, 40 minutes, blacked out immediately. Like I literally remember like feeling like I blinked and all of a sudden the credits are up and I was confused. And he's like, come on, asshole, you fell asleep. So he gives me shit for that one too. So those are two that come to mind, but we got many. Congrats to the reviewer I trust the most. Well, I appreciate that. That's a good badge to have. Hey man, watched Hundreds of Beavers last night. Oh wow. I hesitate to know what channel that was on. Hundreds of Beavers last night. Such a fun original film. Have you seen it, reviewed it yet? I know I could check, but am currently watching this. Like to hear your opinion though. I have never even heard of it. I'm guessing maybe it's a horror comedy. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'll try to keep it in mind, but it's the first time I'm hearing about Hundreds of Beavers. What's up, Cody? I hope you're having a good night. Did you hear they're releasing a Terrifier 3 popcorn bucket? I wonder how disgusting it will be. I don't know. That's an interesting little thing that's turned into a fad now. I can't remember what it was that really kicked that off. I know the Dune popcorn bucket got the most because it looked unintentionally lewd. But it's something that's kind of cool. It's something that as a kid I probably would have loved, like the limited edition McDonald's cups or some things that we had in the 90s. I don't know. It might just be like a severed head, like Terrifier 2, with the candy bucket. But that's interesting. I didn't hear that. What is a movie you hope never gets a remake? There's not really any that I hope never gets a remake. Like I have a very unique opinion when it comes to remakes. A lot of people take it ruined the original approach, and no remake has ever ruined the original. There have been plenty of shit remakes. Doesn't affect how I view the original whatsoever. Some people act like it's like Fahrenheit 451 or some shit, and like if a remake comes out, fucking people bust open your door and blow torch the originals. So I even movies that I feel like would be stupid to try to remake, and there's just nothing there. There's nothing to improve upon. I still wouldn't be like furious if it happened. And some movies that are on that list of traditional movies that people would say never remake, I think there's actually some interesting places to go, possibly. So I like to give remakes a shot. Most of them disappoint you, but yeah, there's no movie I can think of where I'm like, you fucking touch that and we're gonna have a problem. Sorry for making you pick this time. I just want to know what your favorite Metal Gear sequel is. Mine is MGS3. Mine as well. I think that Metal Gear Solid 1 and Metal Gear Solid 3 are by a landslide the best games in that franchise. Metal Gear Solid 2 has its fun elements to it, but it's always annoying that you never get to play as Snake beyond that little intro chapter. And I think it gets a little too weird by the end of it for my taste. But all these games are fucking weird in their own right. Metal Gear Solid 4, I thought was great when I first played it. Tried to replay it maybe last year and just could not get into it whatsoever. Metal Gear Solid 5, gameplay wise, is fucking phenomenal, but story wise, it takes a giant shit. So, Metal Gear Solid 1 and Metal Gear Solid 3 are basically perfect. Starting to get a little dry mouth. Are basically perfect games to me. So, yes, I agree. And on that note, this stream is not sponsored by Circle. Oh, I don't like that flavor. What is that? Lemonade? I don't like that flavor. Congratulations, Cody. Been a long-time subscriber. Love watching your videos. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Congrats, man. If you could take control of any intellectual property and do whatever you wanted with it, what would it be? Ooh. Probably Phantasm. People might expect me to say Freddy or Chucky, but I don't really want to be the guy that has the weight of that on my shoulders. Phantasm, I feel like I could bring something really interesting to it. I feel like I could respect the originals while coming up with some ideas of how to modernize it a bit and make it a bit more mainstream. Because as much as I love how weird the originals are, I would like to see that's a movie that's primed for a remake in my mind, is Phantasm. I would like to see somebody take it in a direction that's a little more appeal for more people, because Phantasm is very love or hate. So yeah, that one. Like I could just see like I would really crank up the gore and practical effects for in a modern way with like the spheres, like actually have them like drilling shit and like have them flying around with chunks of flesh on them and stuff. Like, ooh, I'm excited just thinking about it. Phantasm. How happy were you to see a certain someone in Deadpool and Wolverine? Also, have you seen Hell House LLC? Would love to see a review. I have heard so many times to check out that movie, so I need to finally do it. I'm not really big into found footage, so I never really gave it a shot, but people say Hell House is awesome. Yes, I was over the moon to see a certain someone in Deadpool and Wolverine, to the point where as soon as this person walked out, I was like, okay, I'm taking dad to see this weekend. And so I took him to see it for his birthday. And during that scene, I was like, and just kind of looked at him, and he had the same reaction as me. So yes, I hope they do something more with that, is all I will say, to keep things spoiler free. You never include I Know What You Did Last Summer. In what? Never include it. I mean, in general, it's not really a franchise that sticks out much to me. It's kind of from my childhood and that Scream era, but I'm not crazy about any of them. Like the first one's fine. The second one is not as good, but it's kind of more memorable to me for its badness. And the third one is, whoa. Watched that for the first time 2 years ago. So I'm not sure what I never included in, but if you're just kind of mean in general, I don't talk about it much. That's why. What are your thoughts on The Perfection and Nocturne? I saw them last week and they were fantastic. The Perfection is awesome. I think that was probably the best horror film the year that it came out. I don't know if I don't think I did a review for it. I saw it late, but that was a really twisted movie that went for a lot of crazy twists and turns. Nocturne, I need to refresh myself on what the hell that is. Have I seen Nocturne? I have not. Sydney Sweeney. Jason Blum. Yeah, I don't know anything about Nocturne, but The Perfection was great. That's one of those streaming movies that just kind of got dismissed because it's a streaming movie and it's fucking good. If you had to direct a horror movie, what subgenre would you tackle? Keep up the great content, brother. I would like to do a vampire film first. Kind of relates to what I was saying earlier with the question was about what movie I would write. Luckily now we're kind of getting in an era where vampire movies are being made more, but for a long time that was my reason because nobody was making them. And I wanted to be the one to like bring it back. Like enough of the Twilight shit, vampire horror, blood, gore. But yes, I would like to direct a vampire film. I think I could have fun with that. And now we have reached the nose itch segment of talking for too much. All right. Cody, love the content. What are you excited about in general right now? Can be anything, not just movies. Thanks for the dedication. I'm heading to Gathering of the Ghouls next week. For those of you that are at or near Phoenix, Arizona, it's kind of a horror party / con. So they invited me out. They're flying me out, getting me a hotel and everything. So I'm kind of excited about that because I've never gotten that type of opportunity before. I've been to cons, but I fund my own way and everything. So that's really cool. And I'm also very excited to the people who are going to be there that I'm basically going to be hanging out with. Like I'm for the most part just going to be behind the scenes hanging out, and I'm meeting everybody and attending the party. But you got like Felissa Rose, who I've already met earlier this year, who's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing her again. A lot of people from the Return of the Living Dead. My mind's going blank, but there's a lot. Joe Bob Briggs is going to be there. A lot of people are going to be there who would be really cool to meet. And the fact that I'm going to be able to like hang out and not just be somebody that walks up to their table, says hi, pays for an autograph and leaves. I'm excited about that. So that's something to look forward to. What horror movie would Mick Gordon be good for? I am blanking on who the fuck Mick Gordon is. Mick Gordon. Australian composer for Doom. I'm not really a score guy. There's some great horror scores, but I'm not nearly as passionate about that as some others. So I'm not a good person to ask. I'm trying to think of like Doom is kind of like horror heavy metal type scores from what I remember. Maybe something like Resident Evil would probably be good for him if they did one that actually took it serious. Thoughts on Space Jam? It's not for me personally. I loved it as a kid. I haven't seen it in 20 years. I didn't watch the new one either, so I don't know if I'd like it as an adult, but as a kid, it was a big deal. I had the jersey. I had all the toys. I had the soundtrack. What's worse, Hangover 3 or Horrible Bosses 2? Hangover 3 by a landslide. Horrible Bosses 2 is solid. It's not as good as the first one, but it's solid. Hangover 3 sucks. Hangover 2 sucks. Like Hangover 2 and 3 actually inadvertently make me like the original film less. For as much as I just said remakes never affect a movie, sequels absolutely do. So Hangover 3, also one of the worst theater experiences I ever had for a multitude of reasons that I won't get into. We'll just say that before I met my wife, I went there with somebody that I was interested in, and the night did not go well. And so it certainly colors my experience to what was already a pretty bad movie. But Horrible Bosses 2, I think, is still pretty fucking funny. That's a good one. Mini horror story. Alan, almost said Alien. Alan from Sleepaway Camp 4 and Tina from Halloween 5 have married. Ugh, I hate it already. Had 8 kids and are moving in next door to you. Love your channel. Have some money. I'm moving. Thank you. Fun question, but yeah. Ugh. You can call me chat bitch all day, Cody. Oh God, am I that far behind? Hey Cody, longtime fan, love the channel. Wanted your opinion on 2 gritty mid 2000s favorite that I recently rediscovered. Have you ever seen Running Scared or Alpha Dog? Keep up the good work. Running Scared is one that I would absolutely want to do for one of my hidden gem movie reviews. I love that movie with Paul Walker. Such a badass movie. Alpha Dog, not as high on. I think that there's some really good things about it. I think Anton Yelchin especially is gut-wrenching in that movie with how good that he is. But it's a movie for as many things that I like about it. There's things that I don't like about it. Like it's a movie filled with people you really don't like. And so it's hard to get through. And the way that, I mean, it's a true story and it's supposed to be gripping and supposed to be heartbreaking, but like Justin Timberlake actually does pretty good in that one too. I remember that was kind of a surprise for me. But I don't know, man. Like even Ben Foster, who's always great, is like, he overcooks it a lot in that movie. I like Emil Hirsch a lot, and you just hate his fucking character in that movie, which you're supposed to again. But that's a movie I watched once, and I've never had the desire to revisit. And again, it's the point of the movie because it's a true story, but you see all these opportunities for somebody to do the right thing and nobody does it, and it just infuriates you. It's like Speak No Evil, where it's like it's well made, it's good, but like I just get pissed when I watch it, so I don't enjoy it. But Running Scared is awesome. My man Blake, congrats on 150K, brother. How ready are you for Romulus? I'm going to see it in IMAX at 9 tomorrow. I'm very ready. I actually had to log off of Twitter because fucking morons who are supposed to be professionals, and some of which are my peers, decided because they don't like some of the things that happen in the third act, let's just discuss it openly on Twitter 4 days before anybody can fucking see the movie. Anyway, yeah, I appreciate it, buddy. Me and Blake see each other a lot at the movie theater, so I'm going to see it tomorrow at IMAX at 3. So I'm very excited for it. Luckily, I didn't have too much spoiled for me. It was just one thing about the third act, but I really wish, whether they're a friend or a peer or not, I really wish people that got caught talking about a movie openly before the public can see it would have their privileges of being able to go to these screenings fucking revoked. What are your top 5 most anticipated movies for the rest of the year? Oh, by the way, I'm very excited for Alien Romulus. I'm sorry I went on a big rant because that's just the first thought that came to my mind, but I'm very excited for it. I'm going to be shocked if it's not in my top 5 of the year. Maybe that's expectations I need to temper because I hear there's some crazy decisions that are made that are either going to really work for you or really not. But that's also something that entices me sometimes. I like a little risky movie. What are your top 5 most anticipated movies for the rest of the year? Any video games you're looking forward to for the rest of the year? Video games, I can't think of any. Like Star Wars Outlaws seems interesting, so I'm going to check that out. Dead Rising, I'm really interested in that remake, so I'll be playing that one. As far as beyond that, I don't fucking know. Like it just feels like no video games are coming out this year, and it's just it's depressing. But movies, Alien Romulus is number 1 for sure. Terrifier 3 will be up there. Nosferatu will be up there. Actually, Beetlejuice would probably be up there for me. I'm not a Tim Burton guy, but I like the original, and these trailers have really sold me. So that might be a little surprise for me this year. As far as a 5th one, I'm trying to think, what the fuck else have I got tickets for? I see movies so often and my mind just goes blank for what the rest of the year is. I only think for like the next week or so. I don't have any other tickets. Wow. Okay. The Crow. No, that wouldn't be on there. Smile 2 looks interesting. Never Let Go. That'll probably be my number 5. Never Let Go, the new Alexander Aja film, which leaked. Apparently, that's going to be the opening film of Fantastic Fest, and I will be in the presence of the goddess who is Halle Berry. Anyway, thoughts on the upcoming Speak No Evil? You know, it's a movie that when they first announced it, I was like, why are we doing this? Like, I understand the concept of American remakes to foreign films. A lot of people get pissed about it, but I get it because there's a lot of people that will not watch a foreign film. I used to be one of them, so I sympathize with those people. And it's a shame that those people will never experience a really great story in its original format because of that. But if you make a really good American remake, I think that you merit your existence. But for me, with this one was weird because I'm like, yeah, it's a foreign film, but they fucking speak English. So why can't people just watch this one? It's not a subtitle movie. So that annoyed me. Then they announced it was Blumhouse, and I'm like, oh, great. Not on a good track record with Blumhouse here lately. And it just automatically made me think this is going to be sanitized all to hell. The first trailer is classic Blumhouse. Here's the entire story in 2 minutes. Here's a bunch of reveals in the fucking marketing. And so that annoyed me. And I'm like, okay, you're giving me even less reason to be interested in this fucking thing. The only thing I've been interested in this for is James McAvoy. But since some early reactions have come out, and I always take these with a boulder of salt, and I always encourage all of you to do it as well, even if it's mine. A lot of the early reactions are kind of in simpatico with the thought of, I expected this to be shit, and it actually is really interesting and subversive and takes some wild directions that makes it stand out from the original. So since hearing that, I'm a lot more interested in it. I'm still not exactly like it's not in my top 5 or top 10 most anticipated of the year or anything like that, but I'm curious about it now. If nothing else, I'm sure James McAvoy is going to kill it, but I'm curious what they're going to do to be different. Should a future Ghostbusters movie lean into more horror-driven territory, and how should they implement it into the franchise if they do? I don't think they ever will. I mean, just the original, maybe the original 2, but more so the original 1 really had that Saturday Night Live edge to it with the comedy, and that has since gone. Like, the cartoon and the pop culture treatment of Ghostbusters has molded it permanently into a family entertainment franchise. So would I be curious to see it? Sure. I don't think it needs to be that. I just wish the comedy was a little more edgy and they didn't have 17 characters in it like they did the last one. But I don't think it'll ever be different than what it is now. It's always going to be something that they want to have kids and parents see together. Most wanted director's cut of any film. Wes Craven's Cursed. Wes Craven shot that entire movie, and then the fucking Weinstein assholes made him reshoot the entire thing. And so, I mean, the cut that we have is a fairly entertaining movie. I don't think it's terrible, but when you know what was originally going to be there, and the werewolf designs by Rick Baker, for fuck's sake, the guy that did American Werewolf in London, and they got rid of his shit and made a CG werewolf, like, second worst thing that the Weinsteins ever did. But yeah, it's never going to happen, I don't think. And they never actually shot the climax of the movie. So even if we do get it, they're going to have to like storyboard the end of the film. But that's something that I think that's the most anticipated, the most wanted horror director's cut. So that is my pick. Do you pre-order your Blu-rays or go out and buy? Where do you go out and buy them now? I used to. Target doesn't sell them anymore. Best Buy doesn't sell them anymore. I never go to Walmart. So yeah, I have to get them online now. I get them all from Amazon. You know, Best Buy doesn't even have them on their website anymore. I used to get that from Best Buy here and there, but yeah, pretty much exclusively from Walmart or Amazon, with the exception of like Scream Factory or like the Second Sight that's doing the Hitcher Blu-ray here soon. Like movies like that you have to go to these little specialty places. I'll get from there. But yeah, all online now, which sucks. I used to love it. Was like a relaxation exercise for me to go to Best Buy and browse through the movie section and walk away with 2 or 3 movies for the night. Never, it's gone. You know, maybe it'll come back eventually, but it's gone. Should parents let their kids watch R-rated movies? It depends on the kid. I say this all the time. You know, people, we all know our kids better than everybody else. Some kids from a very young age are more than capable of handling a horror film. Some kids are teenagers and still can't handle them, and only their parents can make that judgment call. Also, you have different, you know, beliefs as a parent. You have more religious households that don't like that, and you know, things they don't want their kids exposed to certain things. And that again, that's everybody's prerogative. I don't tell you how to raise your kids as long as you don't tell me how to raise mine. But in general, like even within my own household, Riley, my youngest, took to horror very quickly. You know, she just happened to walk in the room when I was watching Scream 2 years ago when I was getting ready to review the 5th one, and immediately was sucked. What is this? And wanted to watch the others, and then wanted to watch Chucky and Freddy, and she loves horror. Bella was the same way, my middle child. Whenever I first met Holly, you know, Shane was 7, she was 4. Shane was very opposed to watching anything. I think most of that's because Holly and Holly's mother convinced him that he was going to be scared if he watched them. I kind of broke him of that after about a year, but he wasn't as quick to take to horror, and Bella very much wanted to watch it from a young age. Me as a kid, like I watched Chucky and Freddy from like 4 or 5 years old upwards, and I used to watch Freddy movies before bed. Never affected me. Never affected me. Others, that would traumatize them. So it just depends on your kids. Will you ever review the Silent Hill games? Probably not. I mean, they're going to remake the second. They are remaking the second one. I'll review that one. It's hard to go back and review older games. It's not like watching older films, because while there's certainly some things you'll still potentially always miss out on when you're watching a movie from the 60s or the 70s for the first time in 2024, you don't have the reference of what it was like at the time. With video games, it's significantly worse because the gameplay itself, the graphics, the availability to even be able to play it is night and day different. Like, you can go back and try to play something from even the PS3 generation, and you'll feel like you got cerebral palsy. You're like, how the fuck did I used to play this? Like, my fingers aren't working, because things have gotten so high quality, 4K, streamlined, 120 frames per second, that you go back to some of these old control schemes and shit, and you're like, my brain doesn't work this way anymore. Even worse with things like the PlayStation, which you'd have to go back to play the original Silent Hill. So, it's very tough, because even if you can figure out a way to kind of figure it out and grit and bear it and get through it, you're not going to be fair to that game's legacy, because you're playing something that is since wildly outdated. And like, I played Silent Hill 2. I don't know why I missed this game when it came out, by the way, because it's one of the most acclaimed horror games of all time. I never played Silent Hill 2 when it first came out for the PS2 for whatever reason. I played it for the first time in 2020 during lockdown, using PlayStation Now, their little streaming service shit that they were doing for a while. And if I was to review that game, it would not get reviewed favorably, because I already knew the twist, for one, because it's common knowledge for video game fans, but it was really fucking rough to play. And so I just don't really think there's any value to that. It sucks, because I wish I could. I would love to do like review series on video games, but if it's not a video game series like Uncharted or something, where I only got to go back a couple generations and I can still, I played them at the time and I can kind of stay in that headspace. Games that I never played before, or games that are just so old, like the original Silent Hill, they're a bitch to try to get back into and get into that headspace again. We still have 77 super chats. Holy shit. This is probably going to go past 2 hours. I'm going to try to speed through some of these guys. I appreciate everybody's generosity, by the way. I'm not bitching. I just see that number. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like an hour behind. Have you seen Lowlifes on Tubi? I have not. I'm just kind of starting to get into Tubi. Tubi is the streaming service that feels most like kind of browsing the movie shelves, because it's just random shit. So I'm going to start getting into Tubi a little bit more, I think. Alex, congrats on hitting 150K. Thank you. One question I've been wanting to ask you: do you consider Misery a horror movie? I feel like it gets left out of the conversation for horror greats. What do you think? I mean, that's one that I understand people debating between horror and thriller. I personally consider it to be more horror, but it's not like a hill I'm ready to die on. It's not like the Terminator. But you think of that situation, like, here's how I approach it. And I've said this before. The way that I differentiate between the two: a thriller should thrill you, and a horror should horrify you. So when I think of a thriller, I think of things like Breakdown with Kurt Russell, or something where there's like some action sequences, there's some tension, there's some excitement, and you're on the edge of your seat, and there's some suspense in there. Misery has a lot of that, but the concept of being strapped to a bed by a psychotic fan that is likely never going to let you go, but gives you the hope that they're going to let you go under the guise of destroying essentially your life's work, the novel that you have waited to write your entire life to get away from all of this franchise mainstream shit, and forces you to write something you're not passionate about until she believes you're passionate about it. And every time you try to escape, you get fucked over. And the one time she catches you, she literally smashes your ankles with a sledgehammer. Like, that's fucking horrific. So to me, it's a horror film. But if somebody said it's a thriller, I'm not going to argue. I'm like, okay, cool. That's just the criteria that I base that off of. Other people, you got to be gory to have a horror. Other people, you got to be, you got to be scared to have a horror. I mean, everybody's got their own little criteria. That's just mine. Yes, it was the 80s house movie I was referring to. Love the Autop streams. Is there a chance you guys could ever meet up in person for a future stream? I mean, The difficulty is Brian. Brian fucks it up for all of us because he's overseas. But some version of that in the future, I would say would be cool to do. It's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but I would love that. But yes, the 80s House movie, I love the original. I've never seen the sequels, but I love the original. Congrats on everything you do. You're awesome. Appreciate it. Fun versus, do you think the Creeper would be a perfect opponent for Predator? I mean, just for the fun of it, I think it would be an interesting fight for sure. The Creeper would win. As much as the Predator is a bad motherfucker, the Predator is mortal, and seemingly the Creeper is not. So that would be fun to see for sure. Have you seen Family Dinner, German Prime? Nice. I have never heard of it. So I'm interpreting that as it's on Prime and it's a German film. I've never heard of it. Have you heard of the movie Blood? It's by the director of Session 9. Ooh, and The Machinist. It's actually tries to treat vampirism as scary. When did this come out? You have my attention. Let's see here. Oh, 2022, not too long ago. I'll have to put that on my radar. I mean, The Machinist is a movie that I'd watch once and never watch again, but it's pretty well done. Session 9 is one of the more underrated horror classics in my mind, so I'm definitely interested. Thanks for the recommendation. Thanks for killing it with the movie recommendations with the Collector series. Love the Resident Evil videos too. Hope we get an update on the next remake soon. I'm with you, man. I am with you. I want actual news, not fucking rumors and whispers. Hello, Katie. Big cheers to 150K. Thank you. When did you first know you were going to be a lifelong horror fan? Was there one movie that caused your horror awakening? Well, Child's Play 3 is the one that introduced me to horror, so probably that one. And it was just kind of off to the races from there. Like, I saw Child's Play 3 and I was like, what the fuck is this? Is there more of this shit? Because this is awesome. And then very quickly got into Nightmare on Elm Street, and that just kind of extrapolated things. So Freddy and Chucky combined were kind of my horror awakening and the reason that I knew I was going to be a lifelong horror fan for sure. Watching you rant about bad movies is always funny as hell and soothing. What's one movie you would recommend to everyone that no one knows about? Well, I'm glad I can be entertaining. It's kind of a bummer sometimes because I always get more views on videos where I'm clearly going to be going off on something. Like if I'm doing that in the thumbnail, I know I'm getting more views than if I'm like, but so it's kind of a bummer sometimes that movies that I really want to like talk positively about and encourage everybody to see, not as many people interested in hearing my thoughts on, but it's always fun to kind of rant and roast bad movies. So it's not the worst thing in the world. What's one movie you would recommend to everyone that no one knows about? Fuck. The one that I always bring up, which if you've been watching this channel for a long time, it wouldn't fall into that category because most people know it by now, is Rudderless. It's a movie that nobody knows about. I've never recommended that to somebody and go, oh yeah, I've seen that. Not one single person. And it's one of the most amazing movies of all time. And every single person that has watched it and come back to me and reported back has said that they absolutely loved it and was like blown away. So that's my kind of go-to answer for that one. The feeling of introducing your partner to your favorite horror films, what a great feeling. I don't have that feeling too much at home. My wife's not really into horror so much. So there have been a couple of them, but for the most part, she doesn't get into those as much. She's not like too scared to watch them or anything. She just doesn't really, it's not her cup of tea. So yeah, I'm glad that I'm able to be with somebody that does not share my movie passion and my movie taste. Like, it's not a problem for us, because if it was, I don't know if we would last as long as we have. Love the content, Cody. Which foreign movies are your favorite? Have you by any chance ever seen a Norwegian movie coming from Norwegian? Off the top of my head, I can't think. I don't really categorize the foreign films that I've seen into what countries they come from. So I probably have seen a Norwegian movie, but I can't think off the top of my head of one. What foreign movies are my favorite? The two that come to mind are When Evil Lurks from last year was pretty fucking awesome. And shit, what is the name of this movie? Damn, it's a Korean movie. It was the first foreign film I ever watched willingly, and it's since been my favorite. You're gonna have to help me out, chat. So it's a Korean film where this guy, it's really I saw The Devil. I saw The Devil. Thank you. Beat you to it. I saw The Devil, and When Evil Lurks would probably be my top two. I might be forgetting one, but those come to mind immediately. If Chris Nolan directed the next Star Wars movie, would that be enough to revive the franchise? No, because the problem with the sequel trilogy wasn't that they didn't have a good enough filmmaker. I mean, J.J. Abrams makes really good movies, in my opinion. And then you have Rian Johnson, which I know a lot of people love to shit on him as if he was a talentless hack forever and always because they don't like The Last Jedi. But Rian Johnson's a fucking amazing filmmaker too. So throwing a big name on there would not be enough to get me interested and get me curious about it for sure, because that would be huge. But it's all about the story, and it's also about where this is going to fit in. Do you have a plan for what's going to follow this? Like, that was what the problem was. Unless they're just doing standalone movies, which I'm not opposed to that either. But would it be enough to revive it? No, not in my opinion. When is Joey going to show back up on the channel? I bought Young Lion of the West, and everyone should check it out. Awesome. I'm glad you liked it. I'm not sure. Joey's very busy right now, especially since the release of his movie. So as am I. So I would love to have Joey back on sometime. And I know he'd be here with bells on. There's just no plans for it in the immediate future. What has a bigger chance of hitting 2 billion at the box office? Shrek 5 or sequel to the OG Harry Potter films with the cast grown? That Harry Potter. I mean, Shrek 5 is probably going to be big, but I don't have the data in front of me. I don't know how good Shrek 3 and Shrek 4 did. I know 1 was huge and 2 was even bigger. But if you get like a legacy sequel to Harry Potter, I mean, aside from the controversy with J.K. Rowling, and I don't know how much that affects it, but that seemed to be the only thing you heard about when the game came out. But the game still fucking killed it money wise. A legacy sequel with all the cast coming back would make fucking bank. Congrats on the 150. Thank you. I remember you saying you didn't care for Jamie Foxx's acting. Is there a particular reason? His film Ray is one of my faves. No, it's not Jamie Foxx's acting, and I've since kind of gotten over it. There was a while there where I just really was frustrated with him. He's a fantastic actor. There's never a problem with his talent, like just in general, musically, comedy-wise, impressions, acting. Like, that's a fucking multi-talented son of a bitch. But there was an interview that I saw years ago after Django, where he had made a joke about I think they asked him, like, what did you like most about Django, something like that, and his answer was basically like, I just had fun shooting a bunch of white people. And I really, it's not something where I'm like pissed and offended about it. Like, you can't joke about things like that. Like, I have a very thick skin when it comes to comedy. I think that comedy has gotten too sensitive nowadays, but in general, I feel like if you can change the gender or the race of the person that you are talking about in the subject of your joke, and it is wildly inappropriate and you would literally lose your fucking career over it, then it should get the same treatment. Like, if you had a white guy say that, they would never work again. And so that was just something where, like, for a while there, it was hard for me to get over. Like, man, it really is just, it burns my ass that you can say stuff like that and it's like celebrated. And it's like, this is not good for anybody to say shit like that. So yeah, that was my hang up with him for a long time. I've kind of gotten over it. You know, he does great stuff, so he's not somebody that I like hate seeing, but that was my hang up. Will you be playing Until Dawn remake coming 10/4? I didn't even know they were remaking it. Is it just a remaster or is it a full remake? You know, I wasn't a massive fan of Until Dawn. I love that concept of like playing a movie. And there's others that have done this concept that I like better than Until Dawn. Until Dawn, I got really frustrated with, like, you'll have an accident and fuck up your story, and you're just stuck with that now. Like, that character's dead. Now your ending's gonna suck. And it wasn't easy to go back and reverse a decision. You had to like replay the whole chapter. And I'm somebody that when I play a story-based game like that, I like to achieve the best ending. And then if I like the game enough, I'll go back and fuck around and get people killed and see what, you know, what things happen from there. But that was my big frustration with that one, especially in the third act, where like you had to like hold the controller perfectly steady. Otherwise this character died or this character died, and you had to do all the quick time events. And if you fucked up one of them, that character died. Like, that just frustrated the shit out of me. So maybe, I don't know. I'm assuming it's just a remaster, but maybe. Most overrated and most underrated movie in your opinion? I mean, I can't. There's not like a crown for any of them. There's a list of movies on both of them. I'll try to give an example. So like an underrated movie. I would say something like Stir of Echoes comes to mind. The Kevin Bacon film I reviewed it a couple of months ago. Like to me, that's as gripping as something like The Sixth Sense, but it got overshadowed entirely by The Sixth Sense, and nobody talks about it. For me, it's just as good, if not better. Most overrated. Most films that get a lot of awards consideration by the end of the year are pretty overrated to me, but just because they don't really line up with my movie taste. You know, there are always movies where it's like, technically what you're doing is brilliant. Totally understand the accolades as a filmmaker and as a costume designer and a cinematographer and a sound designer. Like, you guys did a kick-ass job, but your movie bored the fuck out of me. Usually it's something like that. Like, I'm one of those people that I will probably never watch Oppenheimer again. You know, maybe if I do a Christopher Nolan ranking down the road, but like that's a movie that I really appreciated what they were doing, thought it was very interesting, but it's a one and done for me. And so last year, where you had a lot of people easily, that was number one movie of the year, and anybody that didn't have it as number one or even in their top few got a lot of shit for it, myself included. Like, those are the movies I tend to think of as overrated because it's like, okay, it's not so fucking indisputably good that nobody's allowed to like something better than that. But there's a ton on both. I could go on for hours on both. Do you think on Game Chamber you could review and rank the Telltale Walking Dead seasons episodes? I don't hate the idea. I'm gonna have to do something like that at some point. Once things calm down, I can't rely on new releases apparently because it's fucked me for the last 2 years. So I gotta start doing some retro stuff like that where I talk about older series. So possibly. Happy 150K. Thoughts on Mousetrap? I have not watched it yet. I can't guarantee I'm going to review it because I kind of made a stance after the first Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, and you started to see Steamboat Willie and all these other companies trying to follow that wave and do the same thing, that I was like, I'm not even going to acknowledge these movies if they're not worth acknowledging. Now, I had a much better time with Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey too, obviously, but Mickey's Mousetrap, which is what it was originally called. I mean, Steamboat Willie went into the public domain on January 1st of this year. By noon of January 1st, the same fucking day, they had a full trailer and a poster, and there was another movie announced that wasn't even involved with them. So I do have, I will be watching the film at some point. If you don't see a review, just assume it's probably going to be my worst film of the year, and I don't feel like giving it any attention. Even if it's going to be easy views for me, and it would be, I don't feel like giving it any attention if it's that fucking bad. And from what I've heard from the few people that see it, they're like, it makes Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 1 actually look like there's some genuine effort there, and that's scary. Still looking forward to your Children of the Corn ranking video. Oh, yeah, probably not going to happen. If it was going to happen, it would have happened. That was a movie franchise that it's the first time that I've committed to something and just fucking tapped out. And I tapped out at the finish line, too. Worst franchise I have watched yet. Tracy, thank you. Been watching you since 30K. Ooh, got an OG in here. Thanks for everything. Your videos and streams have helped me a lot over the years. Well, I'm glad to hear that. You're my favorite YouTuber, have been for a long time, found a lot of favorite films here. I appreciate everything that you just said, man. Thank you so much. I'm glad I can provide some entertainment in some dark times. It's never really the intention, but if that happens, that's makes what I do feel like it's a lot more important than I initially thought. Ben Urban, hey Cody, do you prefer Long Legs or Cuckoo, and why? Just a brief explanation will do. I prefer Cuckoo myself. Currently, Cuckoo's my number 2 horror film of the year behind Abigail. Long Legs is great, but it's a movie that I can't see myself rewatching very often, where Cuckoo is. Cuckoo is just so batshit wild and crazy and fucked up and funny. Like, it's just got kind of everything in it. And the fact that it doesn't completely come together by the end of it, like, there's still so many questions that I have. Like, for some reason, I like that about this one, when usually I'm the guy bitching about that. So for whatever reason, Cuckoo is just a movie that thoroughly entertains me. Long Legs I thought was very good, but I also had some significant issues with it, and it's not a movie that I could see myself rewatching often because it's a very slow, somewhat taxing kind of experience. That's that type of horror film where Cuckoo is very rewatchable for me. But Longlegs isn't far behind it if I was going to rank horror films of the year so far. I'm just glad to finally get here in time for a live stream. Hey, thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you. No problem. Just wanted to say how much your channel means to me. You really got me into the horror genre, and I always go to your reviews no matter the movie. Well, I appreciate you saying that, and the fact that you have The Last of Us and a reference to Resident Evil, I'm assuming, in your username, that is full awesome. So thank you so much. Just double checking if you still have a P.O. box. I do. It's the same address. I actually have a whole stack of packages right here that I have been stacking up for the last 2 months, probably. So I'll do a fan unboxing at some point here in the next couple of weeks. So apologies for any of you that, you know, your stuff belongs in this pile and have been eagerly awaiting me to open it or have that video out. Those videos don't tend to do very well for me. I just kind of do it as a payback to you guys. So I try to wait until I can make a beefy episode out of it, get as many packages done at once. But yes, same P.O. box. It's in the video description of all my videos. If you were to compete on Survivor, what would be your strategy going into it? I don't know, because Survivor is so different nowadays. And I feel like I would either be amazing at Survivor or I would be horrible at it. I don't feel like it would be anywhere in the middle. I feel like I would either try to play too hard and get myself voted off very early, or I would be a fucking evil mastermind and make it all the way to the end. But yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like the social part of it is what I would struggle with the most, because people get so that they second and third and fourth guess themselves about who's in their alliance and who's their friend and who's trying to fuck them over. And that would be the hardest part for me, where I would have a really hard problem with trusting people that I just met and putting the fate of my game in our relationship. Even if I feel good about somebody, you know, like you see people walk off and talk with each other, you're like, what are they talking about? Like, I feel like that's what would fuck me up, if anything. Would be like, I don't know if they're my friend or not. Maybe they're trying to screw me over. I'm going to screw them first. So that, I don't know. I do not know. Can you imagine me on Survivor? That'd be a fucking riot. Max, I know you don't agree, but I think Ghosts of Mars is fun to watch and Vampires is mediocre and not watchable. You're right. I don't agree. Nonsense. It's all good, man. We all have our favorites. We all have our own taste. But thank you for the super chat. Favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie or older horror movie from Golden Age if not a Hitchcock fan? I haven't seen too many Hitchcock movies. My favorite would be Psycho, but I've only seen Psycho and the Birds. So that's another one of my kind of gaps in horror knowledge that I need to rectify at some point. I bought Rear Window, so I probably would watch that one next. But Golden Age, I mean, my favorite movie from that era is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. I know that's kind of an oddball choice because it's not a movie you consider from like the golden age of movies because it's very silly. But as far as movies from that time period, that's the one that I've watched the most and enjoy the most. What is your next director filmography review series? Also next Blu-ray haul video. Blu-ray haul probably within the next couple of weeks, right after I do the fan mail unboxing. Next director filmography, I have no plans to do this anytime soon, so don't hold your breath for it. But I would like to do Cronenberg because there's a number of Cronenberg films I haven't seen yet that I need to rectify that. Hey, Cody, love from South Africa. Your videos are my favorite since you never sugarcoat your thoughts. You're 100% genuine, unlike many others. I appreciate that very much. And it's very odd for me, even 8 years in, it's very odd for me that what you love me for is what others hate me for. Like, I'm one of those people that because I don't sugarcoat my thoughts and I try to be as genuine as possible, people either really love me for that and it makes me stand out amongst those that don't, or they really do not appreciate it and they view it as proof that I'm a horrible person. Josh Kegley, sup, Cody? You going to Fantastic Fest this year? I'm be going to TIFF for the second time. Pumped. Yes, I already have my tickets bought, and I believe Sean already has the Airbnb selected. So I will be at Fantastic Fest again this year. Very excited for it. I just hope to God that they figured out that ticketing issue from last year, because I do not want to endure that again. But yeah, I'm excited. There's a number of movies that I feel like are around Fantastic Fest. It would be very interesting if they end up in the festival. Like, I expect Terrifier 3 is probably going to be there. I expect Smile 2 is probably going to be there. We already got somewhat confirmation that Never Let Me Go or Never Let Go is going to be there, which is cool. I feel like there's a very, very outside chance that maybe Nosferatu or something like that could pop up, which would be cool. Maybe Beetlejuice. It's always interesting to figure out what the mainstream movies are going to be, because they usually play coy with them. They usually put some of them in the secret screenings and don't announce all of them. And then, of course, all the movies that I've never heard of that I'm going to walk into blind, that I'm going to walk out saying, guys, keep an eye out for this. It'll be out sometime in the next year and a half. But yeah, I'm excited for it. What is your thoughts on the movie Wishmaster? I was going to say I've never seen them. I watched it when I was a kid because it said Robert Englund was in it and Wes Craven presents, and my stupid child brain thought that it was a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel. So I watched the whole fucking thing like almost in a trance, didn't pay attention to anything that was happening, got to the end and said, what the that wasn't a Freddy movie, and just I've never watched it as an adult. I know there's like 3 of them, right? That's a franchise that I probably need to review at some point. I know people like the first one quite a bit. Did you ever see the shows The Expanse or Babylon 5? I have not. Are they both on Sci-Fi Channel? I don't think I've watched any shows on Sci-Fi Channel, but no, I've never seen them. Would you ever consider doing a standalone horror movie of each decade's tier list? An idea that I've been playing around with. I've seen Watch Mojo do a variation of this, which it kind of stuck with me as an idea that I think I could do my own version of, is doing like an A to Z of a certain decade or a certain era. Probably would be decades, like A to Z horror movies of the 80s. And so it would literally be, what is there, 26 letters in the alphabet, 26 movies from the 80s in alphabetical order. You know, like A would be a movie that starts with A, B start with B. That's an idea that I've had. I tried to do the top 10 movies of the 80s last year, and I was going to carry that on to the 90s and the 2000s, but those videos just ate shit. I know some people really liked them, and I enjoyed doing them, but for whatever reason, man, they did not get good views. So I kind of stopped doing them. But I love the concept of kind of going through an era and exploring movies that way. So I'm going to do something along those lines. Something along those lines. Are you going to do another Blu-ray collection video sometime soon? Yes. Yes, within the next couple of weeks. Would you consider Terrifier torture porn? Ever see State of Grace with Sean Penn, Ed Harris, and Gary Oldman? Great gangster movie, I suggest. I have never seen State of Grace. Do I consider Terrifier to be torture porn? Not necessarily, because it's, I mean, I don't know. It kind of rubs shoulders with it. Like, they're not necessarily being tortured, with the exception of the big scenes of both of the films. Like, they're just big, extravagant kill scenes. The second one, certainly you could argue, is torturing that girl. But when I think of torture porn, I think of people who are strapped down and having bad things done to them, like Hostel or Saw. And the whole point is just to watch how gory and nasty and sadistic things can get, which are things that most people would say about Terrifier. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't immediately pop into my brain as torture porn. It's just a really fucking extravagant gore fest slasher. But they're basically cousin concepts. So yes and no. Why do you think Blockbuster closed but not theaters? Because the whole point of the appeal of Blockbuster is to go and rent movies that are on home video, and the streaming services absolutely killed that. Whereas the appeal of going to the theater, while lessened for a lot of people, and while many people don't really think it's worth the money, and so they would rather just sit at home and watch it, you still have a lot of people that value the theater experience, and you can't watch most of these movies on release date. I know we did a lot closer to 2020, but nowadays they've gotten away from that a good bit, except for the movies that fail. So you'll still have to wait like a month. But that's why, Blockbuster, going to physically rent a copy of something to take home, to watch it, to drive back and release it or return it, that no longer made sense when you could do the same thing with a click of a button at home, and you don't have to get out of your house. You don't have to return it. There's no late fees. And oftentimes you can buy the movies for not a whole lot more than you rent them. So all those reasons. What's up, Cody? Congrats on 153K. I was just in Atlanta last weekend, hoping to run into you. Haha. Also, what's your favorite signature horror weapon? Well, I am rarely in Atlanta. So if you see me in Atlanta, the stars have aligned. But what is your favorite signature horror weapon? Freddy's glove. Easy answer. Would you ever do the tier list of your dad or wife's favorite movies? I've thought about something like that for like Father's Day or for Mother's Day or something like that, but just haven't pulled the trigger on it. But I have had that idea of doing something like that. I don't know if I would do it for my wife. My wife doesn't really have favorite movies. Like, she has movies that she loves from her childhood. That would be most of her favorite movies if I forced her to make a list. But like I said, she's just not really as passionate about movies as I am. So asking her favorites, she would tell you like The Little Mermaid and, While You Were Sleeping and things like that. So it wouldn't be as easy for me, or as it wouldn't be as appealing of a concept as somebody like my dad, who's big passion for movies, at least back in the day, and would have all these wild, crazy movies that a lot of you guys know and recognize that are horror and action and sci-fi, where, I think my wife, if I made her do a top 10, she would probably get stressed out. Did you like Crawl, and thoughts about the sequel possibly taking place in New York of all places? I dug Crawl. It wasn't like a favorite of the year or anything like that, but it was a cool little, animal monster movie, and a sequel in general, I think, would be an interesting idea. Hey, thank you so much there, Amanda. Congrats on 150K, Cody. I appreciate it. Who's a director that the more they direct, the more they're hurting their legacy? Zack Snyder. Easy answer for that one. Some of it's not his fault. His treatment over at WB is not his fault. It's all pretty much studio bullshit. But his decisions that he has made since leaving WB have done him no favors. Not Die of the Dead. Army of the Dead was decent. I don't think it's a movie that really was like this big comeback or anything for him. Not that it was necessarily supposed to be, but it was decent for somebody that really likes Zack Snyder and really likes zombie movies. And his previous zombie movie is my favorite zombie film of all time. That movie should have been an easy win for me. It was just okay. But Rebel Moon, especially, I think Rebel Moon is going to fuck up his career for a bit. I think that, there's people out there, of course, the Zack Snyder fans that blame Netflix. And I do think a lot of it was Netflix's decision, but the fact that Zack went along with it, given what happened at WB and what his fans wanted, I feel like it was a gigantic mistake. And so you have a guy who I feel like a lot of the criticism hailed at him is not really fair or founded. It's just people hating on him because of the bad cuts of his movies. It's not really his fault. There's people that have genuine criticisms with his filmmaking, and that's fine, but he's lumped into a category of like worst filmmakers, and I don't think it's founded at all. But with what has happened with Rebel Moon, I think he's given a lot of those people that don't like his style, don't have faith in him as a filmmaker, and are kind of sick of his situation that continuously keeps happening. You gave them validation for their thoughts. Like, I'm somebody that's a fan of the guy, and I am fucking sick of having to watch 6 hours of movies and 2 different cuts to get whatever story he's trying to tell. I'm over it. So he needs to seriously reset and go back to something more simple. Have somebody help him with the writing, for God's sake. And enough of this, like, everything that I do is so epic and monstrous. It has to be 9 hours long, and I need 4 fucking cuts. Enough. Enough. Howdy, Cody. Congrats on the 150K. Huge achievement. Yes, it is. Thank you. If you could decide what would be the best concert you've been to or would love to go to. Best concert that I've been to. I mean, I haven't been to a bad concert ever. That's a good thing. But I mean, I've seen some really good ones. The one that sticks out in my mind right now, because it was just such a perfect night, is Me and my wife saw Matchbox 20 last year. And I've always been a big fan of theirs. So is my wife. It's one of the few concerts where she's just as excited about the music as I am. Typically, it's one or the other. I'm either going to a show like Post Malone that she's really hyped about, and I could care less about, or she's going to a rock metal concert where she kind of knows the band, but it's not necessarily like big for her. That was the first time that I can think of where we saw it, where we're both like singing every song, know every word, loving it. And they played a huge set. They played for 2 hours plus, which is massive. Like they played basically every song you would have wanted them to play. There was a lot of build up to it because it got delayed numerous times because of COVID. So that was just literally a perfect evening. So if I had to give an answer for it right now, it'd be that one. Would love to go to I Metallica is still on my bucket list. Metallica is still on my bucket list. So that's the band that I really want to see. That's a big priority for me right now. Do you like any punk music? Not so much. Some of it I like, some of it I have a little nostalgia for, but in general, it's never really been my subgenre. Corey Costa, hey man, love the channel. Just wondering, have you ever seen the show From? One of my favorite newer horror shows. Think you would like it. I have not. I don't watch too many TV shows. It's so hard to keep up with all of them. And I feel like there's a new one coming out every single day. So there's a lot of good ones that I probably missed because of that. What's up, Cody? Big congrats on the 150K. Any thoughts on a season ranking for The Boys? Also, have you checked out Mindhunter on Netflix? I watched a little bit of Mindhunter, but it was in the era where I was working full-time at Gulfstream and doing this, so I was always exhausted. And any show we put on, I would fall asleep during, even if it was great, because I was just so sleep-deprived and exhausted. So I didn't really get to give it a fair shot, and then they canceled it. So I never really felt like I should watch it, because then I'm going to be pissed that I don't have the story completed. I'll do a season's ranking for The Boys next year after it closes out. I still haven't watched a single episode of season 4 yet. I've been just busy as fuck. What is your most anticipated horror movie of 2025? Mine is 28 Years Later. Off the top of my head, that's mine too. I can't think if there's another one coming out that would trump that one. Gearbox CEO says a sequel to Borderlands should be announced soon. Said before the film came out, no way this would get the green light right. A sequel to the movie? No, there's no fucking way. Absolutely no way. They would be stupid to greenlight it. Thoughts on Nosferatu? Kind of nervous. Seems like they're diving into lore the original didn't dive into, so I felt confused after the trailer. The trailer was very good. It wasn't something where I was like, holy shit. But yeah, I'm confident in it, but it's not like a movie where I'm like, this is going to be amazing. I know it could very much not be my thing as much as I'm confident in it. So we'll see. Hey, Cody, longtime fan. Congrats on 150K. Have you ever seen The Wraith with Charlie Sheen? If so, what do you think about it? I have not. What is The Wraith? The Wraith. I don't recognize this at all. Mysterious man spirit descends from the sky and manifests in a sports car. What the fuck? That sounds pretty wild. No, I've never seen that one. So I'm sorry. I wish I could answer your question better, but I've just now heard about it for the first time. Biggest grievance with theater experiences today: AMC and Showcase never or near me are always filthy, very poorly managed. Kind of miss old turnstile chairs too. I do not miss the turnstile chairs. I love the recliners. The theater chain that I go to, that my wife used to manage, and my son might potentially actually be getting his first job there, which is kind of cool. They're always pretty clean and kept up very well, so I don't have those issues. There's a theater in Savannah that's a shithole that I hate going to. Once in a while, you'll have like a Fathom event or some independent film that only plays there, and I hate when I have to go to that theater. So I get it. But the one that I go to regularly is very clean and very well kept up and modernized. My biggest grievance, aside from just the fact that people treat everywhere like their living room and they talk out loud and they fucking bring kids to movies kids shouldn't be at, or they pull out their phones. It's like, why the fuck are you here? Aside from that, I just wish that more theaters would modernize their dining options. Ever since I've been to Fantastic Fest and experienced the Alamo Drafthouse, that's been a growing frustration for me that I think would fix a lot of the issues that people have with theater experiences kind of not being as sacred to them anymore. Start serving more shit. I love popcorn and soda as much as the next guy, but after a while, it's like, gets fucking old. And sometimes I want dinner. Sometimes A lot of times on Thursday, I get fucked when it comes to dinner time because I go to the new release and I either have to eat something when I'm not hungry before the movie or pick up fast food on the way out that I'm not going to be very happy with. And so I would love the fact if they had more dining options at premium theaters, chicken fingers, pizzas that don't cost $12, something like that. I would get dinner every single time I went to the theater, damn near every single week if it was an option. So that's my biggest one. If you could pick any movie to get a remake, which would it be? And who would you pick to direct? Also, is there any chance of you getting into anime? Zero chance on me getting into anime. That ship has long sailed. But a movie that I think should get a remake, and who would you pick to direct it? Well, I talked about the Jordan Peele People Under the Stairs one. Let's see. Let me try to think. Okay, so Phantasm is the movie that I would pick to get a remake. Who would I pick to direct it? I know that J.J. Abrams is a massive fan of that movie. Like his company is the one that kind of shepherded the 4K restoration of it. I would be morbidly curious to see what he would do with a gory rated R movie like that. But aside from that, as far as like a filmmaker's style that I think would be really fucking wild to see his version of Phantasm is Fede Alvarez. I'm really psyched for Alien Romulus, and if I'm really disappointed in it, I might change this answer. But I think of what he did with Evil Dead and like the viciousness and the ferocity that he had and the gore. I want to see like that in Phantasm, and I think he's just really good at suspense too. So I'll say that Fede Alvarez is Phantasm. Have you ever seen Bob Clark's Death Dream? If not, are you familiar with it to any degree? You should totally review it. I have not. Bob Clark's an interesting guy because he's known equally for being the guy that gives you the best Christmas horror film and the Christmas film that everybody watches every year in A Christmas Story. So, no, honestly, I didn't even know he made another horror film. That's how little research I've done, I guess. Thoughts on the 4:30 movie, and you should do a Kevin Smith review series. I don't know too much about it, but Kevin Smith is another one of those filmmakers that at some point I would like to do some kind of a series and, if nothing else, a ranking because I've seen about half of his movies. But he's an interesting filmmaker. Would you ever do a fast food tier list? What's your favorite, least favorite? Been a fan for a while. Hope you continue to grow. If I do a food channel, like a cooking channel, that's an idea that I certainly would do. I would do food reviews. I would do tier lists and stuff when I'm not doing recipes. No guarantee on when that's going to happen because as my Game Chamber fans have already seen, it's very hard for me to even maintain 2 channels, let alone 3. It's hard when you do it all yourself. I'll get to a point where I'm going to have to hire somebody to help out, and then it'll open up a lot of opportunities for me, but I'm not ready to do that yet. Still working on that. This movie can suck my white ass. As soon as you started your 31 on 31, that way I knew I was a fan. Thank you for all the awesome content, sir. That was in relation to Seed of Chucky, I believe. Evan Dollar, thank you so much. Couldn't be more excited to see The Collected might finally be happening after all this time. I never thought we'd see the end of the trilogy. I was pretty confident that they would figure it out at some point. I figured there was some kind of time lapse that had to happen. If they're not going to make it, then it reverts back to somebody, and that seems to be what has happened. So yes, I'm excited as well. 31 on 31 idea, action horror, Firefly trilogy, Wrong Turn, Mortal Kombat, Tremors, The Purge, and Jurassic Park. What a fucking weird collection of movies. I can't imagine doing a 31 on 31 where we're talking about Jurassic Park and Devil's Rejects in the same sentence. I like the weirdness of it, but I can tell you right now, there's not a single person, not a single person in Autop Stream that would be like, Cody, that's a great idea. Like Brian would be like, what the fuck are you smoking? Like if we're gonna do Jurassic Park, I'm all for it. Get that Rob Zombie shit out of here. Oh man, I like it though. I like the weirdness of it. Just wasted an hour and a half seeing Borderlands. What a mess. Yeah, it's not good. It's not the worst of the year, like a lot of people are saying it is, but it's not good. Evan, thank you. Have you seen Brawl in Cell Block 99? I have. I love it. It's awesome. I totally recommend it. Just watched it last night. Really enjoyed it. Vince Vaughn was badass, which I never thought I would say. Yeah, it's a really trippy movie. It's a really good one. If you want to see like a dark, fucked up thing with Vince Vaughn, that's a good one. Do you prefer your Jurassic Park movies to be horror or action? Also, did you watch Scooby-Doo growing up, and do you like the franchise overall? I mean, I think the Jurassic Park inherently has always been kind of a mix of adventure and horror. I think that, I mean, Jurassic World, I think, is the second best Jurassic Park film, but there's not a whole lot of horror in it. It's more so just kind of goofy blockbuster fun. That's why the first film is always going to be the best because it just had the right balance of everything, of imagination, of technological achievement, of really good story and characters, of action adventure, thrills, plus horror with the raptors and the T-Rex eating people. And it's one of those movies that's just perfect. And for those of us that watched it in theaters and were there when Jurassic Park was unleashed on the world, it's like this cultural phenomenon of the time. Did I watch Scooby-Doo growing up? I did. Scooby-Doo's on Zombie Island. I'm still a fan. I'll still watch that every once in a while. Have you seen the movie Dog Soldiers? If so, what do you think? Go look at my 31 on 31 Creatures of the Night video from last year. We ranked a bunch of werewolf and vampire films. Dog Soldiers is not high, I will warn you, but you'll get all my thoughts there. In general, British humor doesn't really work for me, and the movie I've tried to watch it 3 different times and it just doesn't work. I don't remember specifics, which is why I'm pointing you at that one because that's right after I watched it, but I've never been a big fan. Do you like the movie Cube? Underrated. I've always been told to check that one out. I just haven't. I think that was one. I think somebody told me to watch that when I was like 19 or 20. It was one of my coworkers. And I forget what movie they were comparing it to. I don't know if it was Saw. They were like, it's kind of like Saw, but more sci-fi. I don't know if that's accurate. It might not have been Saw, but whatever movie they were comparing it to, I wasn't a big fan of. So I was like, I'll wait. Best Metal Gear Solid game in order 1, 2, 4, 3, and 3 goes to the end by default because Solid Snake is not the main character even in the game. That's a odd reason to put one of the greatest video games of all time at the end of your ranking. Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that at all. My order would be I always loved the first one the most. Very close behind that is the third one. Arguably, the third one's a better game, honestly, but the first one's just was such a mind-blowing experience when I first played it. So 1, 3, 5, 2, 4 would be my ranking. Is the drive-in you mentioned possibly located in Jessup? I was actually at that drive-in about a month ago. Yes, that is one of them. That's the one that is an hour or so north of me, and then there's one that is off in I still can't remember the name of the fucking city. Bumfuck, Georgia. I remember I discovered it when I was working construction, and you had to drive through all these cities that nobody lives in that drop you down to 25 miles an hour just so they could speed trap you. But there's one west of me, the same distance, that is a 50s themed one. But yes, the one in Jessup is the other one. Because your horror director rankings have done quite well, will you do a Tim Burton ranking in 3 weeks? I'd enjoy seeing that one. Not enough time for me to watch all the other Tim Burton films, especially since I don't really enjoy his stuff. I don't see that happening anytime soon. I know people would click on it, and I know some people would value my opinion, but if I don't like something, I don't necessarily see the value in me exposing myself and forcing myself to even more of the thing that I don't like just so I can make a video saying how much I don't like it. That makes sense. So, I mean, there might be some surprises in there. That would be the optimism side of me going, maybe there's some hidden gems that I would really like. And I'd be like, holy crap, I didn't know Tim Burton actually made shit that I liked. Glad I checked them all out. But in all likeliness, it would be me just saying over and over, I don't know, this guy's style is kind of weird. I don't really like it's a lot of style over substance. It's not really for me. Moving on, number 28. Yeah, this movie's not really for me. Like it's just I don't know. That's why I'm a little nervous about not nervous. I'm a little hesitant to do a ranking of the Superman films when Superman Legacy comes out because I've never seen any of the Christopher Reeve film. I did not like Superman as a kid, so I never wanted to watch them. As an adult, they're extremely dated and cheesy. And so I don't think the prospects of me liking even the first 2, which a lot of people love, are very high. And so I'm like, fuck, do I want to be the guy on YouTube saying Man of Steel's the best one and the new one's the best one because I don't like the cheesy old ones? Like heresy, you know what I mean? So yeah, probably not going to happen. If I had a lot more time, maybe, but 3 weeks to watch 20 something of his movies. Maybe not that many. Maybe he hasn't directed as many as I think, but yeah. Which of these would you want most? Bride of Freddy, Jason Takes Manhattan, big budget remake, Season of the Witch 2, Gremlins 3, Alien 3 retry. Well, we're kind of getting Alien 3 retry to an extent. I mean, if you Alien 3 retry in the context of a direct sequel to James Cameron's movie that's going to have Ripley and Hicks and Newt, that would be the easy pick for me. That's basically what Neil Blomkamp wanted to do, and then Ridley Scott prevented him from doing it because he wanted to talk about life and creation. Hoping FFC's Megalopolis blows us all away, but not sure. Interested with horror now. Any room for Jason and Freddy, or is it better to stay in the past? There's plenty of room for Jason and Freddy. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're sitting on their hands. And by the time they actually get a movie out, I hope this doesn't happen, but in all likeliness, this current golden age of horror that we're in, where slashers of the old and movies of the new are all performing really well, is going to be behind us. And so, yeah, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. Megalopolis, I know almost nothing about it aside from some things are controversial about it. And so I really don't, I have no opinion on it. Do you watch previews before movies? I've seen the Smile 2 trailer so many times now, it has lowered my excitement for it on the road to 200K. Absolutely. Yes, I watch trailers sometimes. For the most part, I try to avoid them. I don't like watching horror trailers too much anymore, especially. Sometimes I will just to kind of get an idea, and then I'll kind of click off the trailer once I'm sold. But I'll see certain ones in theaters, but for the most part, until the movie starts, I'm usually looking down on my phone because I either don't want to see the trailer or I don't want to see the trailer for the 10th time. Like the Speak No Evil trailer, I don't need to see it anymore. Stop playing it every fucking week. But yeah, seeing a trailer too much can certainly affect you a bit. So I understand. Jesse, thank you. Can't see what the super sticker is, unfortunately. I wish StreamYard would figure that out, but thank you anyway. Thoughts on The Boys and Invincible? By the way, guys, I appreciate the generosity, but I don't know how to make the setting where super chats are off, but let me finish the super chats that we have now. I'll try to answer a few more questions. I'm already 20 minutes over what I was trying to do. So if you haven't already submitted your super chat, wait till next time, please. I appreciate it. Thoughts on The Boys and Invincible? I have not seen Invincible at all. The Boys, I've liked for the most part. Season 3 especially, I thought was pretty great. Season 1 and 2 were good, and also kind of they both dragged in the middle to me. But it's a good show. I just got done watching Gen V, so I wanted to watch that before I started Boys Season 4, and so I'll start that here sometime soon. Cody, you're awesome, mate. Love your style, even though I disagree with some of your top movies like Chucky, but I respect your view. 1 million subs. Yeah, that would be awesome. But that's the way it's supposed to be, man. I always tell people, like, the goal is not to make you agree with and bow down to whatever my movie taste or my favorites or my least favorites are. It's just, you're doing it right, in my opinion, as a critic or a movie reviewer, whatever you want to call me. Even if you completely disagree with my movie opinion, you should be able to get an idea whether I liked it, or excuse me, let me start over. If I'm doing a movie review, whether I liked the film or disliked the film, I should be able to convey my thoughts enough and give you reasons for my movie taste and everything of why I arrived at that, where you can tell based off of my video whether the movie's for you or not. So that's the goal. It's not, hey, this movie sucks, you should just agree with me and not watch it. Or, hey, this movie's awesome, you should agree with me and go spend your money on it. It should be, here's what the movie is. Here's what my movie taste is. Here's what I look for. Here's what worked for me and what didn't work for me and why. And you should be able to take all that information and say, this sounds like a movie I would like, or this sounds like a movie I probably would not enjoy. So whether you disagree with me or not, you should be able to get that. And so I'm glad that that works for somebody. That's the intention. Hey, Cody, just wanted to say that the honesty in your reviews is refreshing. Are you going to see Strange Darling with Kyle Gallner? I know nothing about it and going to early screening blind tonight. Enjoy it because it's great. I've seen it twice. I saw it at Fantastic Fest last year. I have since watched a screener for it. I will drop a review for it. Tuesday is when I have it planned for, but it's very good. And if anybody's interested in it, do not watch a trailer. Do not look at the poster. Do not do anything. It's essentially a cat and mouse game where you have a serial killer chasing the one that got away, and it's told out of sequence, and it goes for some pretty massive twists and turns and stuff. And It throws you for a loop, but it's hard to talk about the movie or market it in any way without giving away at least something. So check it out. Could a medieval era Jeepers Creepers work? Jeepers Creepers could work in any era if you just get somebody behind it that's worth the fuck, because whatever the last two were, no thank you. Do you think Stranger Things 5 will become good again like the first season, or continue to take a step down, being way too corny and far-fetched like it has been? Also, thanks for making my job less boring as I listen to you while I sit on my ass mowing. Well, that's good to hear. I don't agree with you, so I don't know. I can't really answer it the way that you want. I thought that season 3 and season 4 were both great. I thought season 2 was really the only season that took a dip. So I'm sure season 5 is going to be great as well. I'm a little annoyed at this modern trend that we're in with TV shows where they need 2-3 years sometimes in between seasons. Like, to me, that's way too much. But my impatience aside, I'm sure the show is going to end great. Will you ever review Hacksaw Ridge of the Patriot? I don't know. I don't imagine those videos would get viewed very much. Not to say I would never talk about it, like in a ranking, or if there's a reason to bring it up, but just to do a random review for them, probably not. Would you like Fede Alvarez for AVP? Also big fan. Not necessarily. I think AVP is one of those inherently kind of less serious, more action, fun type concepts, and that's not what you go to Fede Alvarez for. At least that's not what he's done so far. Not to say he couldn't do it, but I think him doing Alien in the spirit of the first film with a little bit of the style of the second film is exactly what I would expect from Fede Alvarez. So I don't immediately think I need to see his version of Alien versus Predator. In your video, when you said you could take on Jaws, you mentioned that you almost never go to the beach. Does that mean that you have never been to Hilton Head? If so, you need to go up there. I've been to Hilton Head. I have been to Tybee a number of times. I've been to Hilton Head. Hilton Head is significantly nicer of a beach, I will tell you that. I just don't really care for the beach much. I don't really like swimming in the ocean. Like, you get salt in your eyes, and of course there's always like the uneasiness of what the hell's swimming around you that's hard to get over. Sand sucks. It's fucking miserably hot, especially down south. I mean, like, August has been punishing so far around here. So I just don't get the appeal of it. Like, I would much rather any day of the week go to a pool and just hang out at a pool somewhere than to drive all the way to the beach. I just don't enjoy it. So I not to say that I haven't had good times at the beach, because I have, but I've had a lot of bad times too. I just don't care to go. Do you think you'd review Squid Game season 1 before season 2? No, probably not. YouTube and what I do is so like time critical that very rarely is it worth it to go back and review something, even just weeks after the conversation has stopped. Like, I did my I Saw the TV Glow review, partly because it was a film that I wanted to talk about, even though I didn't really completely enjoy it, but also because a lot of people were talking about it, and I was like, maybe people are still interested in my thoughts. And it did okay. It didn't bomb or anything like that, but that's the nature of what I do. If you don't strike while the iron's hot, move on to whatever's new. You know, I don't necessarily stick to that 100%. Sometimes I'll do videos just because I want to. I don't care if it succeeds or not, but the business side of me has to take that into account. Who's scarier, remake Leatherface or remake Jason? Oh boy. It's a good question. I think Leatherface inherently is a little scarier visually, is a little scarier of a presence, but that remake Jason's a fucking monster. So I don't think I'd want either one of them after me. But I'll give the nod to Leatherface, I guess. If you wrote a script for a horror movie, who would you choose to direct? Eli Roth, Rob Zombie, Shyamalan, or Robert Rodriguez? Oh boy. It really depends on the tone of the movie, I think. If it's more of a fun, if I was going to make a vampire film, I would want it to take some serious themes, but I would also want to have fun with it in the spirit of like the Lost Boys, like why I liked Abigail so much. So with that in mind, I feel like Robert Rodriguez would probably be the best person for it, because he, of the four there, has the most fun with his movies, where the other three are always dead serious for the most part. Not Eli Roth to a degree has fun too, but it's the balance of it is not as much as Robert Rodriguez. So none of them would be my first pick, I don't think. Not that I don't love some of what all of them do. But yeah, the idea in my head for what it would look like, I think Robert Rodriguez would fit it more than the others. Thanks to your passion about Rudderless, I bought and loved it. So powerful. Thanks. There you go. Listen to Ben, and Ben we trust. I'm glad you checked it out. Are you a fan of the Chucky show? I liked season 1. Did not like season 2 whatsoever. Season 3 I thought was just okay. In general, I don't care for the directions that they've taken the character. I don't really care for how non-serious it is now. Like, it just doesn't take itself seriously at all. And I feel like you have to an extent. I mean, there's always been some campiness with Chucky. There's always been some inherent silliness, but it just feels like now it's just kind of a joke. It's kind of like it's almost borderline parody, and it doesn't do much for me. So yeah, I guess in general, am I a fan of the show? Not really, because it's 1 for 3. What film do you find defending and or you find underrated that most people say suck? Also, same question, but for film you trash, but most people love. Defending that most people say suck. This is a hard one to come off at the top of my head. I mean, there's movies that I don't think are as bad as people make it out to be, or are much better than people give credit for. I can't think of one off the top of my head that people say is terrible across the board that I think is awesome, that's worth like defending and arguing about. A film that I trash that most people love, probably Blair Witch Project. I'm not a fan of that movie at all. And pretty much everybody, it's always the same thing. It's like, you had to be there. I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't. So it's not good. But that's the only one I can think of. I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's all that comes to my mind. My brain power is lessening. 2.5 hours constant. I'm like, movies, I don't know. Do you think the new Toxic Avenger will be released, or will it be another tax write-off like Batgirl or Coyote? I can't imagine that they won't find somebody to release. I find it very strange that they are having trouble with that, because I've seen the movie, and it's a fun movie that I could see a lot of people really enjoying, and it would be perfect for a streaming service. Like, I don't see it succeeding a lot in theaters, and maybe that's why they're struggling, because they're really pushing for that. But if you put this on Shudder or something like Peacock or what, I don't know what one it would go to. I don't know what rights, who owns what. But I think that's a movie that would be a little cult classic that a lot of people would watch, and it would be a little conversation piece for a week or so. And that's what it always seemed to be. So I don't know what the issue is with that one. What would happen if Dexter and Walter White came across one another? Who would win? Dexter. Because Walter White wouldn't see Dexter coming. I mean, I prefer Walter White as a character personally. I think there's a little bit more there. But Dexter could very easily trick Walter White and fuck him up, because Dexter is the wolf in sheep's clothing. What about your instant reaction to Mike Flanagan doing Exorcist? I mean, it instantly makes me more interested in whatever they're doing with Exorcist for sure. But at the same time, I need to know about the story. I need to know if this fits in with Believer, if this is ignoring Believer. I need to know what the story is, no matter what the answer to that question is. Mike Flanagan's an incredible filmmaker, and an incredible showrunner, even more so. But I've never found there to be anything to do with Exorcist beyond the first film. Like, Exorcist 3 is kind of a weird anomaly in that, because it kind of fits in the Exorcist franchise, but not really. So it's kind of a compromise there, but I need to know what the fuck he's doing. So I'm intrigued, but I'm not like, oh my God, yes, this is what I want. It's going to be awesome. Congrats on 150K, well deserved. Have you seen Donnie Darko? If not, can you please watch and review? I have seen Donnie Darko a number of times. I rented that back in the day just because Jake Gyllenhaal was in it, and I was like, the guy from Bubble Boy, I like that movie. So very different experience. But yeah, it's a cool little trippy movie. It's one that I wouldn't mind doing a review for that one. I think people would be interested in that one. It's one that people like to talk about and kind of theorize on. So it's a good one. Would you rather watch a movie you hate in a genre you love, like Jason Takes Manhattan, or a well-rated movie in a genre you have zero interest in, like Downton Abbey movie or Terms of Endearment? Wow. It really depends on a lot of different factors. Like when I hear Downton Abbey or Terms of Endearment, I think long, slow, boring. And as much as I think Jason Takes Manhattan is a shit movie, it's quick, easy to watch, and over in 90 minutes. So I would probably take the first route. Granted, I like if a movie's well rated, I like giving movies a chance, and sometimes they might work for me, even though traditionally they won't. So as a film fan, I prefer the second road, but it just depends. There's a lot of other context that I need to say which one for sure. Things like Downton Abbey in Terms of Endearment, like the Victorian era stuff. I've never seen a single movie that I've enjoyed like that. It just I get bored just thinking about it. Could a new scary movie work nowadays? If the Wayans brothers do it, there's a lot of things to make fun of in the current landscape of horror, but you have to have somebody that actually is funny, not just somebody who can make stupid throwaway jokes. So if the Wayans brothers came back to do another scary movie, I would have full confidence that it would probably be funny as hell. Spiral Swirl, thank you so much. Tony, will you ever review Game of Thrones or House of Dragon ever? By the way, huge fan. Watch all your videos. Thank you. No, Game of Thrones, like kind of what I was saying earlier, like strike while the iron's hot. I don't think those videos would be worth the time and effort of watching Game of Thrones again and doing reviews for them. House of Dragon, I watched maybe the first 3 episodes with my wife, got busy, didn't keep up with it, haven't watched anything in season 2. So I don't know if I'll even keep up with that one or catch up with it at any point. I liked Game of Thrones. I wasn't crazy about it like everybody else. Like I said, fantasy's kind of a tough sell for me, so probably not. What's your favorite Lars von Trier film? Oh, God. Let me see. I haven't seen a number of them. I can tell you that now. Oh, let's see here. I have seen I have seen a grand total of 1 Lars von Trier film, The House That Jack Built. I don't think he's a filmmaker that necessarily appeals to me. Like I have heard enough about Antichrist to know that I probably would not want to watch that one. I've heard enough about Melancholia to know I probably would not want to watch that one. I've heard enough about Nymphomaniac to know that I probably would not want to watch that one. He's one of those filmmakers that he has his appeal for sure, but just doesn't really make movies that interest me at all. So I guess by default I'll have to say House That Jack Built, but that's also a movie that I wasn't crazy about. Spiral Swirl, hey Cody, love your channel for years. Would you like to see a new mainline Resident Evil game, like plot characters? Yeah, I mean they're gonna do the remakes, but I also want to see them close or continue at least, if not close out the storyline with a new game, Resident Evil 9. So for sure. For a while there, they were doing both. They were doing new game, remake, new game, remake. Now I think they're gonna triple down on the remake thing for a little bit. But yeah, definitely want a new one. Favorite movies from the 70s. My favorite movie from the 70s is The Omen. I have others for sure, but that's my favorite. So I don't have the time to list a bunch of them, but you have the Omen for sure. That's always been my number one. That's one of my favorites of all time. I know you're much more of a movie guy, but since I've heard you bring them up in several of your videos, what are some of your favorite comic books? I haven't read too many of them. I had a little kick for a while there about maybe 8 years ago where I got crazy into comic books and bought a whole bunch of them. A lot of the Batman ones. I thought that Long Halloween was great. Killing Joke was great. Old Man Logan was a lot of fun. I really got into Preacher. Preacher was really cool, but then I kind of fell off and never really finished it. I think I got about halfway through Preacher. But that was a cool one. Welcome Back, Frank. The Punisher was pretty badass. I think I read a little bit of The Flash and Green Lantern, some of the New 52 stuff. But those are some of the ones that come to mind. What's a movie with an awesome sounding premise that totally fucked up the execution? A number of M. Night Shyamalan films. One that I wouldn't say it fucked up the execution. It just didn't completely knock it out of the park. It's still a pretty good movie. In Time. It was a movie with Justin Timberlake. Really cool concept where time is currency. Like you literally buy, like you're basically immortal as long as you're rich. You age and live and die based off of this currency. And it was a really cool sci-fi concept, and he was pretty good in it. Amanda Seyfried, I think, was in it too. She was pretty good. It didn't completely knock it out of the park. You know, it's like a 3.5-star movie. It could have been much better, but that's one that I thought was a pretty awesome concept that just didn't completely nail it. Outlaw Gamer, Cody, I've been watching you for some years now. I find myself agreeing with you on a lot of things, especially my favorite movie of all time also being Die Hard. Woo! And favorite character being Blade. Hell yeah. Glad, man. Those are awesome movies, awesome picks for sure. Thank you. King Nicky, could you survive the guy in The Hitcher? Ooh, boy. I don't know. That guy's pretty ruthless. See, the interesting thing is that I think so. And I'll tell you why. Because most of that movie only continues to happen because Jim Halsey won't take John Ryder out. And especially given that I would probably have my family in this scenario, that fucking dude would be dead pretty quick because I would not hesitate. Like if my life is in danger, that means their life is in danger, and that means that your life is about to be expunged because fuck that. So yeah, I think I would. Not to say that he's not dangerous and he wouldn't probably do some damage, but that you think about that movie, like Jim Halsey is not necessarily the target of like him trying to kill him. He's just playing this mind game with him and killing everybody around him. And it's only because he won't pull the trigger. He won't, like multiple times in that movie, he has the chance to, and he won't. And that's what John Ryder's trying to make him do. And I would not have that problem. So, you know, obviously it's easier said than done. it's armchair quarterbacking, but especially if my life and or my family's life is at risk, yeah, that movie's not gonna be very long. You know, the funny thing about that whole video is the amount of people that are so offended that I said I would survive certain scenarios, and it's clearly because they don't really care for me very much. So they're just like, "Fuck that! You should die in that movie." It was really funny looking at a lot of the comments. Like some people had good logic. They're like, "I don't know, man. Like you didn't factor this in, you didn't factor this," and I'm like, "Yeah, maybe. You know, it's all for fun. It's for shits and giggles." But you had some people where there's just like, "Man, fucking Jason would just murder you. I want to see it." King Nikki, by the way, did a version of that tier list, so go check out her channel. She added like a good dozen to the ones that I already did. Travis Sampson, what are some of your favorite rock and metal bands, and are you a concert festival person? Found your channel recently, and I've been enjoying it a lot. Let's see, favorite rock and metal bands. You have Metallica, you have Alter Bridge, you have Stained, Judas Priest, Seether. I mean, I could go on and on, but those are pretty high up there for me. I am a concert and festival person to an extent. I do get a little exhausted with them, so I kind of pick and choose which ones I go to. And it's also hard where I live. Like they're very rarely close. So almost every concert that I go to, I have to travel anywhere between 3 and 4 hours to go to. And there's just not, it's a very select few I will make that trip for. And it's just fucking exhausting. So I'll usually go to at least 2 or 3 concerts a year. If there's a festival in there, then that number might go down to like 1 or 2. But like Rockville, things like that, it is fairly close by. So yes, I do love a good concert and a good festival, but they're exhausting. Have you ever considered moving out of Georgia to more movie friendly states so you're able to go to more early screenings, or do you feel like you have to live in the South? I'm not committed to Georgia by any means. The only thing that would keep me here is that I like to be close to my family, and all of my family, for the most part, my immediate family lives here. So I would hate the fact of not being able to see my parents whenever I want and my siblings and things like that. That would be the only real drawback. But I've talked about it with my wife a little bit, not like a serious conversation, but we've talked about it. But the thing is, like, I wouldn't move for that reason. There would have to be other reasons, and that's just a benefit to it because I'm really not all that convinced that early screenings is that much of a live or die thing for people's channels. Like I have been to now 3 early screenings for major movies, and all 3 of them, my video doesn't really do that great, like any better than it would if I had just waited and watched it new release or on release day. So like I saw The Flash about a week and a half before it came out. I saw Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny like 2 weeks before it came out. I saw Dune Part 2 days before it came out. And I had to drive 4 hours to Atlanta to see it, then drive 4 hours back. So it was an absolute bitch. But those videos didn't really hit. And a lot of horror films, especially the early reviews, early screenings, are only like a day or two before the release. Like none of them ever have these big massive like hype trains behind them where you have like a week of people talking about it before the movie comes out. Alien Romulus here, like 3-4 days ahead, is probably the most that I've seen in a long time. So if we wanted or needed to move for any reason, and it was an option to live in a city that has more press screenings and things like that, I would certainly be happy about that, but I would not move for that reason. I think the people that are really interested in what I have to say are going to be just as interested on Thursday as they were 3 days ago. So I have not had an experience yet that makes me think if I could do early screenings, my channel would be much more successful than what it is now. I love your Slayless videos. Do you plan on bringing them back, like ranking the hatchet kills? No, because YouTube absolutely decimated them. Everything that I tried to do to shield it didn't work. I think that putting kill, I called them kill rankings at first, and putting kill in the title and on the thumbnail demonetized them. Then I started calling them slay lists, and it still got flagged. And I think because most of the video is clips and talking about kills and saying kills a lot in the videos, the Nightmare on Elm Street one is the only one that didn't get flagged. But they demonetized the Jason one and the Michael one, which I put days of work into. So the only way that I've been able to work around that was with Saw, where I ranked the traps because I didn't say these words that were going to flag the fucking YouTube bots. So that one, if I could figure out a way to, if I could figure out a way, or if it's appropriate to talk about it without screwing myself for the amount of time and effort that goes into the videos, I'll do more. But for the most part, it's a video idea that I thought was going to be awesome. And I thought I was going to keep going and do a whole bunch of them. And YouTube just said, nope. The Chucky one, I actually had to redo and re-edit and re-upload months later, because first they demonetized it numerous times, even though I would switch whatever they said was an issue. And then they blocked the video altogether. So then I was like, okay. So I took out the one scene that they said was a big issue and re-uploaded it, and then it got demonetized again. So for whatever reason, YouTube hated that idea. So it's difficult. Like if I was going to do ranking the hatchet kills, what else could I title it? Like Slay List. I like the name, but it doesn't necessarily tell you what it's about. Like kill ranking is what it is. And it's hard. I can't figure out a way that I could market it effectively without fucking the video. So it sucks. I thought it was a good idea, but it just didn't work. Hey, Cody, ever thought of finishing The Wire? Maybe one day, but probably not likely. HBO shows are really taxing and really slow. And everybody always says The Wire gets better the more it goes on. But I watched like 8 episodes that first season, and it was tough to get through them. It was just very, very slow. And granted, this was 15 years ago, but still. Hey, Cody, do you go the Twisted Childhood universe will become successful after Blood and Honey 2, Love from the UK? Do I think it'll become successful after Blood and Honey? I mean, I don't know. It depends how good the movies are. They have the Bambi one coming. They have Pinocchio. They have Peter Pan, and then they have the Pooniverse movie. So 2 for 2. Like I thought 2 was significantly better than the first one. I still gave it an overall negative review because I still didn't think it was great. But that because the first one was so bad, like a lot of people have pretty much made their mind up about that franchise. So unless they make like they continue to make significant improvements, I don't think so. Money wise, I think they're already very successful. That's why we have this whole universe planned. But as far as like being a franchise that people actually really like in general, they've got some work ahead of them. My wife just texted me and said I missed a super chat that Max asked if I was going to do another Blu-ray collection video soon. I'll do one within the next couple of weeks. I think I haven't missed any, but if I did, I apologize. But yeah, I'll do one within the next couple of weeks, probably the beginning of September. Did you hear any news on Friday the 13th TV series? Last I heard, it was dead in the water. I haven't heard anything else beyond that. Until Dawn is a remake graphically powered by Unreal Engine 5 with a third-person perspective camera. Can you take a look at new details with screenshots? Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll look into it then. That sounds interesting. Remakes are more interesting than remasters if it's a game I don't love, because it might be a lot better for me. Remasters, of course, I prefer if it's a game that I love. But what made Kick-Ass 2 not as good as the first movie? I haven't watched them in a while to be able to give you specifics. Not having Nicolas Cage, because his character was one of the highlights. Not having enough Jim Carrey, because Jim Carrey was great in that movie, and then oddly like denounced it after he cashed his check, which is like the one thing Jim Carrey's ever done that I was like, dude, fuck you. I think that the action was pretty good. It wasn't as fresh for sure, but it also just didn't quite have the Matthew Vaughn style. You know, it was good. I liked the movie, but everything that was good about it, it was just a little better in the first one. So, yeah, it's a shame we never got the third one of that one, because I like both those movies quite a bit, but I haven't watched them in years to give you a more fresh answer. Thank you. What if Dex Resurrection sucks? Hope not, though. I mean, Dexter is like that. I'm the battered wife, and Dexter is the husband that promises he's not going to hit me anymore. It's like, I really don't want to trust them, but if he hits me again, am I going to be that surprised? I don't know, man. Like, if it sucks, then I don't think you'll see any more Dexter, unless it's like a ratings behemoth. But that's really all that will happen, is that you'll have yet another ending continuation of Dexter that people go, no thanks. And Dexter will continue to be one of those complicated things. Dexter should be an easy recommendation, because most of that show is top tier television. Like, when people say, I haven't seen Dexter, should I watch it? You should be able to go, fuck yes, you should watch it. Why haven't you watched it? Watch it now. Cancel plans and watch it now. But that's the answer you can give for things like Breaking Bad. But with Dexter, it comes with an asterisk where they're like, should I watch it? You're like, fuck yes. Well, I mean, how do you feel about shitty endings? So Dexter season 1 through 4, mandatory watching. Dexter season 5, solid. Dexter season 6, not terrible, but certainly the weakest season up to that point. Season 7, I'm a big fan of. Has a couple issues, but I'm a big fan of that season. Then you have season 8, one of the worst seasons of television I've ever seen, and Dexter New Blood, which had some pretty good things about it, but a lot of issues, in my opinion, not the least of which is the ending. So it's one of those shows where it's like, fuck, like, I want to recommend it to you, but I also know how I feel about the show, and I don't know if I want you to have the same experience as me, and you're going to. Congrats on the 150 mark. I became a fan after your Halloween ranking 7 years ago. Oh, wow. For a long time, that video was the top viewed video on my channel, and I hated the fact that it was, because it was not a very good video. I was tired. It was after my daughter was born, so I was sleep deprived. I was not good at formulating my thoughts, and so I looked at it like it's one of those older videos that I kind of cringe at, because I just wasn't very good at articulating at that time. I was still very kind of green. And so you watch some of it, it's like, yeah, Halloween 4, it's just like, it's bad. You know, Michael just chasing the same stuff. It's just not insightful. It's just kind of me going, So that's cool that you found me back then, though, because that's an old school one. Do you think that's the video that started a big growth for you? No, it's one of my more successful videos, but it was a sleeper. It was not a hit video for a long time, and then just slowly I started to notice it getting more views as time went on, and as I was like, where the fuck are all these people coming from? And slowly that video went from being like a video that kind of died on arrival to suddenly being like ticking up the ladder to all of a sudden being my top viewed video for like a number of years, maybe 4 years. So I'm sure a lot of people found me on that one, so it's certainly a piece of my growth. But I don't know if that's the video where like I didn't make that video and suddenly it was like, oh shit, this is the one. This is the one that suddenly now is going to be the breakout for me. It was a sleeper. It was weird. I know you said the ship has sailed for you with anime, but I'd actually recommend Death Note, as that's a trap from M. Night, but much better. Yeah, I just don't enjoy anime, man. I appreciate the fact that some of you guys like it and are so passionate about it that it aggravates you that I can't share that experience with you. And I love that, honestly. And I sympathize because there's some things like video games. I wish my dad could experience some video game stories the way that I love them, but he just it's like trying to shove a square peg in a round hole. It's just never going to happen. So anime, I just don't. I already am very much a tough sell for animation in general, and anime is just not my thing. Like my son loves it, and sometimes he watches it around me, and I'm just like, he'll watch an episode, and I'm like, okay, get out. I'm watching something else. Go upstairs and watch this shit. So I appreciate the fact that you're passionate about it. I know enough about Death Note. I saw the movie version, which wasn't very good, but it's just not for me. Adam does movies. Congrats, man. It's been great getting to know you. Yes, sir. It's been a blast. We had a good time at MegaCon. Me and Adam had an even better time at Universal Studios. We got to go, like, it was a exclusive to MegaCon people at a discount, and all the rides were like you just walk on. And Sean was busy networking with somebody else, and they were like vlogging the whole time. And me and Adam were like, fuck this, man. We're here to ride rides. So we just kind of did our own thing the whole night. If you guys haven't checked out Adam's channel yet, a lot of rants. You know, might give you the impression that he doesn't like a lot of movies, but he does. But he's a very funny guy. So if you like my rants and you like when I go off on something, you'll enjoy Adam's channel for sure. He's got a couple different channels, but check him out. We just did M. Night Shyamalan's whole filmography this past weekend, so you can go check out that live stream. But yes, thank you, Adam. I appreciate it, buddy. What's your opinion on the new Toxic Avenger being considered unreleasable? Well, I kind of answered this a few minutes ago, so I'm sorry that I don't have a more extensive answer to give. But I think it's very releasable. I just don't understand. I don't understand what the issue is. Like, if they think this was going to be like a massive theatrical thing, even before I saw the film, I knew that was not the case. Like, this is very much a niche thing. So how the fuck they can't figure out how to release a niche thing to its niche audience is weird to me. And when you say unreleasable, that gives the impression the movie is just garbage and nobody's going to appreciate it. And that's not the case whatsoever. Like, everybody, for the most part, enjoyed it at Fantastic Fest. Like, if you like trauma movies, it's a more mainstream, slightly sanitized version of it. You know, some of the more irreverent shit, but it's still a hard R, gory, irreverent movie that was fun. So I didn't see anybody really hating on that movie. So it's a weird one. Demise list, maybe. Maybe. Doesn't quite roll off the tongue. Thoughts on the canceled Alien 5 Neil Blomkamp film? I would wish we could see that, because I all the respect to Ridley Scott in the world, whatever he was doing with Prometheus and Alien Covenant was not for me. So I would have easily traded both of those films to see what Neil Blomkamp was going to do. Might have been terrible, but his idea much more appealing to me. Low budget cult classic you want to see remade? Ooh. Low budget cult classic. Some of these are hard to come up with off the cuff. I mean, I guess Christine, which is my answer I gave earlier, still fits underneath that. I would want to see a remake or a like, I guess technically it would be a legacy sequel, like a 40 years later sequel to Christine. I think that would be really cool. Keep the events of the first film intact and have the car by this point has regenerated itself, because, you know, it was a little cube, but you saw the antenna move at the end, and have a modern day kid get into it, and it would be even weirder and even trippier to see the demise, because like the thing that was fun about the original Christine is that you have a movie that it takes place in the 70s, but it's aesthetically an 80s movie to me. You have a kid that, for all intents and purposes, is an 80s kid that suddenly has to have all these 50s like greaser sensibilities. And so imagine that with a modern day kid and how much weirder that would be. Somebody who's 2024 with cell phones and fucking Twitter, and then all of a sudden they start slicking their hair back with jean jackets, and they're kind of, you know, they're being taken over by the 50s spirit. I think that would be really cool. And you could explore more about the spirit that's in the car and the original owner and things that they kind of shied away from the original. I think it'd be pretty badass if the right person does it. Have you seen any Norwegian horror movies like Cold Prey or Troll Hunter? What did you think about them or other Norwegian movies? I don't know. Like I said earlier, I fail to categorize movies in my head by country of origin. So let me see if I can search Norwegian horror movies and see if any of them pop up that I have seen. Lords of Chaos. I don't know if that was Norwegian or not, but that was a pretty fucked up movie. I know it takes place in Norway, but I don't know if it was a Norwegian film. Let the right one in. Let the right one in. Assuming this is accurate, this list that I'm looking at right now. Let's see, Dead Snow, Cold Prey. Yeah, I don't think I've seen any of those. So, sorry, dude. I don't have a good answer for you. I've never seen too many of them or any of them. Ooh, I see the bottom of the barrel here. Last 4. I should have known. I said 2 hours, and I knew if I say 2, it's going to be at least 3. If I say 3, it's going to be at least 4. Debo, I have watched majority of your vids, but I don't believe I've seen you mention Haunt 2013. What's your opinion on it? And Jeepers Creepers Reborn blows. Yes, it does. Maybe I am imagining things, but I thought I reviewed Haunt. Let me look. I know I've seen it regardless. I have reviewed Haunt from 2013. Oh, that's from 2019. Haunt 2013. What is this? Yeah, I've never seen that movie. Okay. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know anything about it. I recognize the girl from Scream 6 right there in the cast. But yeah, I don't have any thoughts to share with you. I'm sorry, but I've never seen that one. But yes, Jeepers Creepers Reborn absolutely blows chunks. Horrible. Horrible. Hey, Cody, glad to see you hit 150K. That's crazy. You're telling me, man. Whew. If it does feel crazy. I've been here since the TCM reviews. Oh, wow. Another OG. Around 6 years ago, it's been amazing to watch you grow. I appreciate that. I wanted to ask if you've ever seen the Speed Racer movie by the Wachowskis. No, I don't really care too much for the Wachowskis style, you know, aside from The Matrix, the first one. But I have Bound. I bought Bound. Speaking of Blu-ray hauls, I bought Bound not too long ago, and I've been looking forward to checking out that one because that's one of their more normal, grounded movies, as well as what we all know about Bound that I have yet to experience. But anyway, I don't really care for their style too much. They're too weird for me. Like The Matrix was like this lightning in a bottle where they were just weird enough and reined in enough, and it made this cultural phenomenon that had mass appeal. The Matrix sequels, all 3 of them, don't work for me. I've seen parts of Jupiter Ascending and parts of Cloud Atlas, and I've never really been compelled to finish watching them. So, Speed Racer, I grew up watching a little bit of Speed Racer, which gave me a little interest in it, but I never heard too many people say too many friendly things about it. Aside from, I think Adam Does Movies, actually. I think he's said some nice things about it. But yeah, I've never seen it. Never really had too much interest to check it out. I'm not really a Wachowskis person. Why? Oh, shit. StreamYard has shit the bed. Damn it! Sorry, guys. I don't want to refresh this and fuck up the stream, so I'm just going to read your last couple of questions. I can't display them. I don't know what happened here, but I don't want to refresh it and fuck everything up. So Jonathan Hernandez asks, favorite final shots in movies? That's another one. It'd be hard for me to say off the cuff without preparing it. Am I back? This has never happened before. Sorry, guys. I should be back. I can move shit now. My wife says I'm back. Okay. I don't know what the fuck just happened. Yep. Okay. Woo! All right. Final shots in movies. I'm just going to say Christine and try to move on quickly. I apologize, but I need to get these other ones just in case it continues to fuck up. But I would have to prepare for that question. I'm sorry. It's a hard one to off the cuff. Friend wants M. Night's name tattoo on her. Thoughts. Don't fucking do it. I mean, unless this guy really is that important to you, putting if there's a movie that you love or a certain graphic that you love, I would go with that. I wouldn't put like M. Night's name, or like, even I took a big risk getting tattoos of bands that I love, because for all I know, they might release a bunch of albums that I fucking hate, and I'm gonna be like, great, now I got their on me permanently and I don't even like them anymore. So I would not do that. I would pick your favorite M. Night movie and maybe do a graphic off of that. If you're that passionate, I would not get his name. Rank the Batman actors on intimidation. Ben Affleck's number one for sure. Then I would do Christian Bale. Then I would do Pattinson. Then I would do Keaton, Kilmer, Clooney, Adam West. Frost, thank you so much. Have you seen Graveyard Disturbance, Lamberto Bava? I have not seen hardly any Italian horror films, guys. Italian horror is a big, gigantic hole in my horror knowledge that I need to rectify at some point. I dove into it a number of years ago and picked a couple of movies in a row that didn't do anything for me, and I kind of just lost interest in the whole genre itself. So I need to watch quite a few of them. But aside from Suspiria and Tenebrae, Suspiria I really liked, but I saw Tenebrae, didn't like it at all, and then I tried to get through The Beyond and fell asleep like 6 different times. So Tenebrae and The Beyond kind of killed my interest in Italian horror, but I need to give it a shot again here soon. What do you think about the first 2 Wishmasters? I've never seen. I watched the first Wishmaster when I was young. I don't remember anything about it. I've never seen 2 or 3. Yeah, I don't have any thoughts for you. I'm sorry. Where would you like to see the next Evil Dead movie take the story? I love the apartment building setting. I don't know. I mean, in a way, it's kind of neat that they can continue to do the cabin in the wood concept in different settings. At the same time, I kind of feel like Evil Dead needs to do something very different, because as much as I liked Evil Dead Rise, it's still kind of the same thing. And we're 5 movies in now. They're going to make like a bunch more. So I think they need to start really kind of expanding and do something wild and different, where it's not kind of the exact same recipe, if you will. So I don't really have an answer. If we're going to stick with the same thing, we've done apartment complexes, maybe do like a mall or something like that, like a Dawn of the Dead, but it's all Deadites. That'd be kind of cool, maybe. But at the same time, maybe people would be like, you're just ripping off Dawn of the Dead. Cody, I subscribed to your channel a few months ago and I love it. That's awesome. I'm glad that you've subscribed. I'm glad that you love it. Also, Season of the Witch is on a top tier list of all-time horror films. It's one of my favorites as well. I'm glad that a lot of people are kind of giving it a second watch and are appreciating it more nowadays, because that's absolutely a hidden gem for me. The Trash of Us. I see where this is going. The Trash of Us is one of the worst stories ever told. And the adaptation is garbage, fire, awful. The Super Mario Brothers movie stands as the greatest video game adaptation of all time. Facts. I know you're joking, but it seems odd to spend $10 just to troll. I don't know. I don't believe you actually believe that. I think you're just looking for a reaction. We both know that that's the opposite of truth. All right, guys. So it's 8:09. I'm going to go for another 5 minutes, and I'm going to take some other questions. I thank you all so much for the super chats, but let's stop the super chats. I'm going to get to some regular questions for a little bit. Zero joking. Okay, well, all opinions are valid on art, but I don't understand that one at all. But I'm going to get to some regular questions for about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll head out for the night. But it's been fun, guys. Thank you. Let's see. Have I ever done a comic book movie, superhero movie trilogy tier list? No, I want to start doing tier lists for other genres like comic book movies, action movies, and stuff. But they tend to just do really well when I do horror. So when I put the amount of time that a tier list takes to edit, I usually try to stick to horror. But before long, I would say you'll probably start seeing some stuff like that from me because I would like to talk about other genres more than it seems like I do. Let's see. If you had a time machine, would you rather fix the practical effects in The Thing 2011 or give Michael a better mask in H4? The Thing, because other than that, that's actually a pretty damn good prequel. And if it wasn't for the shitty CGI, I would watch that movie every time I watch the original pretty much. So that's much more of a win for me than trading out that trash mask. You know, there's a Creed reunion tour going on in certain cities. Were you aware? Let me see. Hold. That is Creed right there. So yes, I have turn the volume off so I don't get fucking copyrighted. But yeah, I have already seen them. I saw them in South Carolina a couple of weeks ago. They were awesome. So yes, I am aware, and yes, I have already enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's see here. Would you ever get the David Zayas haircut? What the fuck is that? Is that Angel? No. I mean, I'm not balding, so that's no. It was Angel, by the way. I knew I recognized that name. What would you change about the Pet Sematary remake that makes sense? Well, I would do a completely different second half of that film. I would, for the most part, I would keep some things intact. I think I would lean into the weirdness a lot more. You know, they shaved off a lot of the weirdness in the remake, so that I would bring back in. But for the most part, it would be the second half of the film. It would be everything after the girl's death that they just didn't really do enough to capitalize on. It felt like the movie just rushed to its ending. Will you make more reviews? I will. I talked about it a couple of times earlier on in the stream, but I know I've neglected that second channel, and I'm aware. I just have to get some time and let the summer movie season, especially, kind of, which is going to go right into Halloween season, which is even busier for me. So I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But as soon as things calm down a bit and I can breathe and get some things on there, you've got the Dead Rising remaster that I'll certainly be playing and reviewing, and Star Wars Outlaws. So coming soon. Would it be cool if I did you some custom sneakers for you hitting 150K? I mean, I'm not going to refuse it. I'm not necessarily a shoe guy so much, but I'm intrigued. I'm certainly intrigued. If you want to do it, I will not refuse it. That'd be cool. Have you seen The Clove Hitch Killer? I have. Very good movie. If you guys haven't seen it. Wes Craven or John Carpenter? Easily John Carpenter for me. Nothing but love for Wes Craven, but not nearly as strong of a filmography. Yes, he gave us Freddy and Scream, so that's more than most people can do in their lifetime, but I think that at least half of his movies I don't care so much for, whereas John Carpenter, it's just kind of maybe 5 or 6 of his movies. When's that zombie 31 on 31? Well, not this year, I will tell you that. But stay tuned. Ideas for a new movie? I'm kind of numb and empty on Chucky, so I don't know. I know they've talked about having a new Chucky movie, but I don't know. I'm kind of burnt on Chucky. High hopes for Terrifier 3. Yes. Chat bitch is back, and we're getting ready to wrap up here in the next 45 seconds. Tripping, thinking you would survive Pinhead. Why is it so wild that I would survive some of these characters when random ass people have survived all of them? Like again, I think some people just they're like, I want him to die. I want him to die and Pinhead to be the one to do it. I mean, a lot of these movies, you look at the characters that survive, and it's just like random luck. Like if you have a functioning brain, you'll survive more than 85% of slasher characters. So that's the logic that I was going into with it. But nonetheless, at what age did you get your kids into horror movies? My boy's 3, and I'm itching to be able to get him into horror. Well, if they're that young, I would maybe start off with something that's more of a gateway horror movie, something that's a little gentler. You have things like Little Monsters. That's kind of a kids movie with horror elements. You got things like Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It's very silly. Movies that's a little easier to, in case they're a little sensitive to scares and stuff, a little easier to see if they're into it. So I would start there. At what age though? Both of my daughters, somewhere between 5 and 6 years old, is when I kind of started letting them watch a little bit. I didn't push it. I didn't rush it. Just as soon as they started to show some interest, I was like, okay, let's try this one. So your kids will kind of tell you, but all kids are different about what freaks them out and what doesn't. So just kind of judge from that. All right, I'm going to do one more. Let me see if I can find a good one here. Let's see. Dream horror tattoo. I don't necessarily have a dream tattoo. Like it's been years since I've gotten one. I got both of these in pretty quick succession, and then I have not gotten one in quite a while. But the idea that I've had, I really want to do at least a partial sleeve on my arms. And the idea that I've had to kind of incorporate what I already have, which are both of these, is that to have like one arm be like the light and the other arm be the dark. So like this is a blackbird that symbolizes like a loved one that has passed away and like the darkness of all of that and everything. And this one's obviously a Godsmack logo, but incorporate it where like maybe like get horror stuff on this side and then other things that like maybe my kids' names or whatever over. Like I think that's kind of an idea that I've had to play around with a little bit. I haven't really dove into it enough to really start planning or drawing sketches or even considering it seriously, but that's kind of an idea I've had for what might be my next one at some point. All right, guys, that is it for this one. 3 hours and 17 minutes. Charles, I made it. Anyway, I appreciate it, guys, and thank you so much for all the super chats. Thank you for all the good questions. I appreciate the support. I appreciate everybody who is a subscriber. 150K. Keep going. As far as what to look forward to for the rest of the week, we've got Alien Romulus, which I will be dropping my review tomorrow evening. I'm seeing it at 3, so at some point in the evening I'll have my review dropped. Friday, my plan is to have a top 10 movie monsters video, kind of in the spirit of Alien. So things like Alien, Predator, Jeepers Creepers, Critters, maybe top 55. But something like that to have fun with. And then, of course, updated Alien ranking on Saturday, and then our 31 on 31 comedy debrief on Sunday. So going to be a busy weekend, a bunch of stuff you guys should enjoy. Hopefully we enjoy Alien and it can be a happy weekend and not a angry, upset weekend. But thank you guys for watching. That is going to be it for me. Everybody have a good night. I'm going to go rest my voice, get some dinner, and I'll see you on the next one.